Bien, vamos a dar comienzo saludando a quienes nos acompañan, autoridades que nos van a acompañar en el día de hoy. En primer lugar, saludamos a la señora Adriana del Piano, ministra de Educación, a quien le damos la cordial bienvenida. Nos acompaña también el señor Cristóbal Marín, vicerrector académico de la Universidad Diego Portales. Nos acompaña también y le saludamos al señor Gonzalo Muñoz, jefe de la División de Educación General del Ministerio de Educación, el señor Horacio Walker, decano de la Facultad de Educación de la Universidad Diego Portales, la señora Carmen Montesinos, directora ejecutiva del Centro de Liderazgo para la Mejora Escolar de la Pontificia Universidad Católica de Valparaíso, estimadas amigas, amigos, invitados especiales, señoras y señores, bienvenidos. En el día de hoy asistimos y realizamos el lanzamiento y Seminario Internacional del Centro de Desarrollo de Liderazgo Educativo CEDLE Nuevas Tendencias de Liderazgo Pedagógico. El Centro de Desarrollo de Liderazgo Educativo CEDLE es liderado por la Universidad Diego Portales, la Universidad Alberto Hurtado, la Universidad Católica de Temuco y la Universidad de Talca, en colaboración con el Ministerio de Educación y también la Escuela de Graduados de la Universidad de Berkeley, y se plantea el desafío de desarrollar las capacidades de liderazgo directivo y además contribuir con ello a la calidad de la educación. Para comenzar, y por cierto para ahondar más en su contexto y pilares de trabajo, quiero invitar inmediatamente al señor José Weinstein, director del CEDLE, a entregarnos una presentación del centro y le damos la bienvenida.
Muy buenos días a todos, a todas. Un placer tenerlos aquí, especialmente a nuestra ministra de Educación, las autoridades de la universidad, también del otro centro de la Universidad Católica de Valparaíso que están presentes. Lo que yo voy a intentar hacerles de una manera breve es presentarles de qué se trata esta iniciativa, porque aquí no se trata solamente de un seminario al que ustedes están concurriendo, también están concurriendo a un momento muy importante para nosotros, que es también las primeras actividades de este nuevo Centro para el Desarrollo del Liderazgo Educativo en la Educación Chilena, que como sigla, ¿no es cierto?, le hemos puesto CEDLE, ya que justamente corresponde a esta idea de potenciar, de desarrollar lo que tiene que ver, ¿no es cierto?, con esta manera. Nosotros creemos que al invitarnos el Ministerio de Educación a formar este centro, lo que se hizo básicamente tiene que ver con ciertos reconocimientos. Creemos que detrás de la invitación del Ministerio, que fue en julio del año pasado, había básicamente 4 reconocimientos. El primero tiene que ver con el potencial del liderazgo para mejorar la calidad de la educación. Esto se ratifica una y otra vez. Si ustedes ven los resultados del último CIMSE, por ejemplo, van a ver que el factor directivo, de acuerdo a lo que nos informa la Agencia de la Calidad, importa 13 puntos, que no es poco, ¿ya?, para mejorar y hacer una diferencia desde el punto de vista del resultado del CIMSE, que es uno, no es el único, pero es uno de los resultados, ¿no es cierto?, de calidad, que es muy importante. Por lo tanto, el efecto de los directivos para mejorar la calidad de enseñanza, para ser agentes de cambio en esa dirección, es extraordinariamente significativo. En segundo término, hay un reconocimiento también de la eficacia de trabajar con directivos escolares. Ya cuando ustedes piensan en los profesores en Chile, tienen que pensar en 160.000 personas. Cuando piensan en directivos, tienen que pensar en 20.000. Cuando piensan en directores de establecimiento, en 8.000. Por lo tanto, cuando trabajan con 8.000 personas, que a su vez trabajan con 20.000 y 160.000, se dan cuenta del extraordinario poder de réplica que tiene el trabajar con directivos escolares y lo importante que es trabajar eficazmente con ellos. Un tercer elemento tiene que ver con un cierto reconocimiento, nosotros llamamos una subutilización del liderazgo. Es decir, que los líderes escolares podrían hacer mucho más de lo que hacen hoy día y podríamos apoyarlos para que fueran todavía mucho más performantes desde el punto de vista de su impacto en la calidad de la enseñanza. Y por último también hay un reconocimiento, un cuarto reconocimiento, a que hoy en día no contamos con una infraestructura institucional de apoyo suficiente para potenciar el liderazgo. Este concepto de infraestructura institucional nos lo dijo en esta misma sala el año pasado Jim Spillane, un famoso investigador y académico, ¿no es cierto?, de Northwestern University, y que nos hablaba como la importancia de contar con esta infraestructura para poder potenciar justamente los liderazgos. Y nosotros estamos convencidos que justamente cuando estamos creando estos centros especializados de liderazgo, estamos haciendo un reconocimiento que puede haber una infraestructura mucho mayor para lograr un poder y un impacto más fuerte y para lograr, ¿no es cierto?, una mayor eficacia para los directivos. Queremos decirle que esto no solo ocurre a nivel de Chile, el crear centros especializados de liderazgo es una tendencia mundial. En muchos países en esta década se han estado creando centros de liderazgo especializados en ello. Estos centros habitualmente han sido centros que combinan muchas actividades, conocimiento sobre liderazgo, formación sobre liderazgo, innovación, que han estado totalmente articulados con las políticas ministeriales y con las políticas educativas de los países. No son iniciativas privadas que intentan hacer un aporte, están coordinados con las políticas mayores que llevan a cabo los países. Y también, ¿no es cierto?, a estas alturas ya hay también cierto conocimiento de los principales problemas que a veces tienen, como por ejemplo su encapsulamiento o las dificultades que viven cuando hay cambios de autoridades políticas. En el caso nuestro, la alianza para este centro se formó entre 4 instituciones nacionales que tienen una experiencia extendida en materia de formación y de apoyo a los liderazgos escolares. Estas instituciones, la Universidad Diego Portales, la Universidad Alberto Hurtado, la Universidad de Talca, la Universidad Católica de Temuco y también la Escuela de Graduados en Educación de Berkeley, son instituciones que todas ya han hecho un trabajo en materias de liderazgo. Todas ellas, por ejemplo, tienen magísteres en liderazgo y gestión. El caso de la Universidad de Talca acaba de celebrar los 20 años de su magíster. Por lo tanto, no es que empecemos ahora a trabajar en materia de liderazgo. Sin embargo, aquí se puede hacer un aporte por esta posibilidad que se abrió el Ministerio de crear centros especializados que sin duda es de otra envergadura. Y también creemos que las diferentes universidades que aquí hay representadas pueden ganar mucho en su sinergia. Piensen ustedes que aquí hay universidades de la región metropolitana, pero también de otras regiones de Chile. Hay universidades católicas, religiosas, y hay universidades laicas. Hay universidades públicas y universidades privadas. Sin embargo, a todos nosotros nos une este deseo de potenciar el liderazgo y hacer un referente nacional. Juntos hemos logrado, primero que nada, establecer una visión de lo que queremos hacer. Esta visión tiene que ver justamente con combinar estos distintos tipos de actividades en materia de liderazgo, la investigación, la innovación, la formación, la transferencia, para lograr justamente hacer un aporte significativo al trabajo de los establecimientos escolares, del nivel intermedio y también para el desarrollo de otras instituciones. Este es un punto importante a nuestro juicio. Nosotros justamente queremos hacernos cargo de la crítica al encapsulamiento, que yo les mostraba antes a nivel internacional. Por lo tanto, queremos plantearnos con otras instituciones formadoras en Chile en una política totalmente de cooperación y, por lo tanto, apoyarles también a que ellos puedan tener también ofertas formativas muy importantes en todo Chile. Cuando hemos trabajado con estas 4 otras universidades, hemos avanzado primero que nada en una suerte de sello propio, y este sello se compone de 5 elementos. El primero de ellos tiene que ver con ver efectivamente a los directivos escolares y a los líderes de los establecimientos escolares como grandes agentes de cambio, como personas que pueden transformar la realidad positivamente, si tienen las herramientas para ello, que pueden influir y que pueden lograr un impacto mucho mayor. Los 13 puntos del CIMSE, como decía, son un ejemplo de ello, pero es muchas más dimensiones que se trata. Lo segundo tiene que ver con que concebimos este liderazgo como algo que está muy alejado de una visión del individuo, director o directora, como quien tiene que llevar todo el liderazgo y todo el peso en esto. Nosotros aquí estamos alejando de la visión del superhéroe o la superheroína. Estamos pensando en una visión del liderazgo distribuido, en que los directivos potencian el liderazgo de todo el equipo directivo, de todos los docentes y de todos los líderes informales en la escuela. Y por qué no, también del liderazgo de los estudiantes y los apoderados, como entes que son válidos dentro de la comunidad escolar. Por lo tanto, hay una visión aquí que está muy enraizada en esta visión. Un tercer elemento tiene que ver con tratar de que estos centros realicen toda su labor realmente trayendo lo mejor de la investigación nacional e internacional en esta materia. Es decir, nos imaginamos centros que actúan informadamente respecto a lo que están haciendo, no para copiar nada, pero sí para estar al tanto de todo lo importante que se está haciendo y ver cómo se puede adaptar a nuestra realidad chilena. Eso tiene que ver, por cierto, con nuestras invitadas internacionales que vamos a escuchar esta mañana. Está la idea de trabajar con universidades, como les decía, sobre todo en el norte de Chile, en las cuales hay pocas capacidades formativas. Universidades que no han podido tener magísteres, como les contaba ahora, diplomado o trabajo de apoyo más real. Esa es parte del trabajo que nosotros vamos a hacer, trabajar con esas instituciones, más allá de las 4 instituciones del centro, para tratar de potenciar en esas regiones en que hay poca oferta, que haya más. Y de esa manera combatir el centralismo que tenemos en Chile. Y por último, queremos influir también en la política pública en esta materia. Por ejemplo, el Ministerio de Educación nos ha comentado que está pensando en una carrera directiva, así como se trabajó y se logró aprobar una nueva carrera docente. Ahora el Ministerio está elaborando una nueva idea respecto a una carrera directiva, que también tenga la posibilidad de tener distintas etapas, que tenga también ciertos requisitos, ciertas posibilidades de uso distintas de la formación, etcétera, etcétera, etcétera. En esa materia, por ejemplo, nuestro centro debiese tener una voz y nosotros aspiramos a tener una voz propositiva y poder influir en esa materia. Por lo tanto, esos son los grandes sellos que hemos acordado entre todas estas instituciones. Nos hemos organizado con un modelo de trabajo que tiene básicamente 4 líneas. La primera de ellas tiene que ver con investigación y política. Quisimos ponerle no solo investigación, sino investigación y política, para distinguir el tipo de investigación que vamos a hacer en este centro, que es una investigación que está justamente cerca de las distintas iniciativas y cambios que hay que hacer en materia de liderazgo escolar. Un segundo elemento tiene que ver con la innovación y modelos de desarrollo, es decir, queremos traer a Chile maneras de trabajar y prácticas de trabajo a nivel del liderazgo que sean diferentes, y también queremos crear y destacar lo que hay ya en el sistema y poder potenciarlo, de tal manera efectivamente hacer innovaciones que hoy día no están presentes. Tenemos también una tarea desde el punto de vista de formativo, y aquí el Ministerio ha sido muy explícito cuando nos invitó a esta licitación de que teníamos que trabajar no solo formando a directivos escolares y más allá del director, justamente algunas tareas directivas que tenían poca acogida, por ejemplo los inspectores generales, los jefes técnicos, como ámbitos muy significativos, sin embargo no tenían suficiente apoyo, y también a nivel lo que se ha llamado líderes intermedios, es decir, quienes encabezan las directivas a nivel de los municipios y quienes las encabezarán en los futuros servicios locales de educación. Por lo tanto, ahí también, al nivel intermedio, hay también una tarea importante. Y por último, lo que les comentaba desde el punto de del desarrollo de capacidades de instituciones formadoras. Y todo ello provisto por nuestro sello. Todo esto se traduce en un conjunto de proyectos, no tenemos tiempo, tenemos una mañana larga para contarles todo, pero simplemente les doy un brochazo, los distintos proyectos que les muestro, los distintos proyectos que tenemos entre manos, el tipo de temas que tenemos, cómo se manejan los conflictos en los liceos, conflictos socioeducativos, cómo se trabaja en equipo desde el punto de vista de los establecimientos escolares, cómo investigar qué ocurre en los establecimientos técnicos desde el punto de vista de los directivos, que es distinto, cuáles son los buenos ejemplos que tenemos de liderazgo a nivel intermedio, qué es lo que opinan año a año los docentes respecto a la política educativa, cómo se rescata más la voz de los directivos escolares respecto a las reformas, los cambios, y eso influencia mediante una encuesta anual las opiniones. Desde el punto de vista de la innovación también hay trabajos importantes, por ejemplo, estas redes de mejoramiento que el Ministerio ha puesto en marcha desde el año 2014, cómo ayudamos a que se transformen en verdaderas comunidades de aprendizaje, o cómo, ¿no es cierto?, logramos avanzar en la inducción de los directores nuevos, noveles, novatos, principiantes. Aquí hay una serie de nombres para hablar de ellos, pero que por primera vez ejercen este cargo de ser directivo. O cómo se tiene, ¿no es cierto?, un GPS para los directores de escuela, de tal manera que puedan, ¿no es cierto?, estas múltiples herramientas que existen, ordenarlas y trabajarlas mejor. Desde el punto de vista de los directivos también, ¿no es cierto?, esta formación de líderes sistémicos, de líderes intermedios, para la convivencia escolar para inspectores, y el trabajo, ¿no es cierto?, con universidades regionales, y también renovando nuestra propia acción de formación de todas estas universidades. Como ustedes pueden ver, es un grupo, un paquete de 13 proyectos que estamos ejecutando, ya todos ellos están en ejecución en distintos niveles actualmente y que por lo tanto son nuestro plan de trabajo para este año y para los 3 años siguientes, porque hay un programa de trabajo a 4 años puesto. Quiero contarles también que aparte de eso, una de nuestras tareas importantes es hacer lo que estamos haciendo esta mañana, es decir, hacer debate, hacer difusión, lograr que en Chile se discuta más de estas materias, tengamos la posibilidad de conocer experiencias internacionales importantes, ¿ya? Y así estamos cumpliendo. Aquí estamos lanzando, ¿no es cierto?, nuestro primer seminario internacional, quiero decirles que este seminario se hizo anteriormente en Temuco y en Talca, y hoy día en Santiago. Quiero pedirles un aplauso especial para la profesora Rebeca Cheung, que está aquí presente, que nos ha acompañado en esta gira por Chile. ¿Ya? Siempre en regiones se dicen, y tienen toda la razón, de que todos los eventos se hacen en Santiago. Bueno, estamos haciendo un esfuerzo para lograr que no sea solo ahí, pero para eso es clave encontrar gente como la profesora Cheung que estén disponibles justamente para recorrer nuestro país. Adicionalmente a eso haremos seminarios nacionales, uno en agosto, otro en noviembre. Ya tenemos un cuaderno técnico que ustedes pueden revisar en www.cedle.cl, esa es nuestra página web, aprovecho de pasar a la visita. Si ustedes ahí lo ven, ¿no es cierto?, van a poder justamente llevar el primer cuaderno técnico. Tendremos libros especializados y en la página web también un conjunto de elementos. Por lo tanto, hay un programa, como ustedes pueden ver, contundente de trabajo que estamos llevando a cabo. Y quiero solamente cerrar contándoles que para nosotros esto no es solo una iniciativa que provenga desde el Ministerio de Educación y que por eso nos pareció interesante, o que estemos siguiendo una tendencia internacional, como yo les mostraba en esta década, y que por lo tanto por eso nos quisimos comprometer, sino que también nos hemos querido comprometer en esto, porque estamos convencidos de nuestro trabajo con directivos ya de muchos años, de que esta es una necesidad muy sentida por ellos. Y déjenme, por lo tanto, mostrarle algunas mínimas frases que hemos recogido, ¿no es cierto?, en nuestro trabajo. Este, por ejemplo, es un director novato, principiante, que, ¿no es cierto?, se enfrenta por primera vez a tener que asumir la tarea de ser director de establecimiento escolar. ¿Y qué nos dice él, no es cierto? Aprendí sobre la marcha, sobre la experiencia, pero me pusieron ahí y tuve que ir, ¿no es cierto?, a sangre de pato, sin preparación. Lo pusieron ahí, ¿no es cierto?, nadie, sin apoyo. Por lo tanto, este tema parece muy importante. Fíjense lo que nos dice otra directora. Nos dice, ¿no es cierto?, la dificultad de su trabajo. Cómo tiene tareas recurrentes de distinto tipo que responder permanentemente. Y ella cuenta, ¿no es cierto?, esto. Dice, bueno, aquí vienen de todo, ¿no es cierto?, trámites administrativos, la agencia, la provincia, el parlamento. Es una batahola de cosas. Y miren la imagen que usa, a mí me parece muy poderosa. Nosotros tenemos una raqueta, solo una. Pero de distintos lados nos mandan pelota y con la misma raqueta hay que responder permanentemente a todas esas... Qué difícil poder hacer ese cargo. Y por último, otra directora también que nos cuenta de su esfuerzo de autosuperación, de trabajo reflexivo y de esfuerzo de estar permanentemente mejorando. Y ¿no es cierto?, nos dice, ¿cómo creo que lo estoy haciendo? ¿Cómo podría hacerlo mejor? La clave es mostrar que día a día uno está aprendiendo. Para responder a este tipo de inquietudes, de necesidades sentidas, es que nosotros nos hemos constituido como CEDLE y esperamos poder estar a la altura de este desafío. Muchas gracias.
Bien, agradecemos a don José Weinstein por su presentación y quiero invitar a continuación para que nos entregue su saludo la ministra de Educación, la señora Adriana del Piano, a quien también le damos la bienvenida.
Muy buenos días a todas, a todos los presentes. Saludar muy especialmente al equipo directivo de la Universidad Diego Portales, a las invitadas internacionales, decirle a la profesora de Berkeley que no todo Chile es parecido a lo que le ha tocado vivir en estos días. Le tocó todo tipo de huelga, le tocó bombas lacrimógenas, se le rompió el vidrio. No, podemos hacerlo mejor y esta es parte de la tarea que vamos a ver aquí. Así que bienvenidas a ella y a todos los presentes, que me imagino que muchos son directores de establecimientos, investigadores de educación, profesores, ¿ah? Y por lo tanto agradecer que estén aquí en este primer seminario internacional, que es parte de los acuerdos y compromisos establecidos en esta sociedad, así quiero llamarlo, en esta buena sociedad del Ministerio de Educación, con dos consorcios de universidades encabezados, uno por la Universidad Diego Portales y el otro por la Universidad Católica de Valparaíso. Este concurso, evidentemente, se lo ganaron en buena lid estos consorcios. Esto fue un concurso público y se lo adjudicaron estos grupos de universidades, que me da mucho gusto, porque aquí hay universidades que están instaladas en la región metropolitana y otras que están instaladas en regiones, en lo que llamamos regiones, las otras regiones. También tiene universidades del Estado, universidades de vocación pública y tiene este apoyo internacional muy importante para que realmente le dé fuerza a esta gran tarea. Y en este saludo, y junto con felicitar la creación del centro, aquí dentro propiamente de liderazgo educativo, quiero decirle que este esfuerzo ha tenido expresiones en distintos momentos, en distintas instituciones, porque claramente el hecho educativo, lo que le pasa a los niños y niñas, en definitiva la capacidad de desarrollar sus talentos, sus capacidades, se hace en el establecimiento, se hace en la sala de clase, pero también la evidencia muestra de que de alguna manera un buen profesor en un establecimiento que no está normalizado, que no tiene un propósito claro, que no tiene un equipo directivo con fuerza, con liderazgo para encauzar, a la larga ese buen profesor como que se va diluyendo. Un buen equipo directivo puede sacarle, en buen castellano, más punta a todo su profesorado. Porque aquí no está solo la experiencia individual, la vocación individual que es clave y importante. También está el efecto de pares. Y el efecto de pares se da cuando hay una preocupación por generar la estructura de pares, para que no cada uno esté encerrado en su sala de clase y seamos llamados solo cuando tenemos que armar el concurso de cueca en septiembre, para ponerlo brutalmente. Entonces, este tema, ¿y por qué es tan importante y por qué el Ministerio ha querido impulsar esta sociedad con universidades que tienen trayectoria, que tienen capacidad, universidades muy serias del país? Es porque realmente la gran reforma educativa que estamos llevando a cabo no puede ser una reforma educativa solo estructural, solo de cambios que los vamos a ver en el mediano o largo plazo. Y son así, estamos avanzando, y yo quiero hacer un breve recuento de lo que tenemos en el sistema escolar. Pero eso tiene que estar acompañado de elementos de calidad que partan ahora. Ahora, si no, no tiene sentido los grandes cambios si finalmente no llegan a la sala de clase, a la escuela, al colegio, al sistema educativo local. ¿Qué hemos avanzado, amigas y amigos, en materia de educación escolar? Quiero partir por la educación parvularia, porque la educación parvularia tiene una parte de su ciclo ya dentro de la escuela. NT1, NT2 es parte de la escuela. Por lo tanto, aquí yo le pido particularmente a nuestros socios que pongan una atención especial de que no sea esto un pegoteo al sistema escolar. ¿Cómo ve el director del colegio o la directora del colegio este núcleo que tiene otro tipo de profesional atendiéndolo, que los tiene un poquito separados en un rincón con un patiecito separado, segregado, pero que esa segregación física que tiene que ver con la edad de los niños, cómo avanzamos a tener ojalá el día de mañana un primer ciclo que sea pre-kinder, kinder, primero y segundo básico, para no producir este cambio a veces muy brusco entre una forma de trabajo con los niños y un niño que tiene apenas un año más lo atendemos de otra manera, se acabó el baño chiquitito, se acabaron determinadas situaciones, hacer una cosa más armónica que haga más a la felicidad y a la integración de estos niños. Pero hay un tema que nos preocupa mucho. Dentro de la reforma estamos impulsando y queremos impulsar un sistema mixto de educación. Un sistema mixto es un sistema mixto, que la gente, la familia puede escoger entre dos sistemas de igual calidad. Y no porque no le quedó de otra, tiene que mandar su niño a una escuela que a veces no tiene nombre y la seguimos denominando la D46 o la A28 o cualquier número, sino a un establecimiento que le dé la posibilidad, igual como se lo puede dar si es que quiere un colegio religioso o quiere un colegio con otra orientación, sea la familia la que pueda escoger. Pero para eso necesitamos mejorar la pública, porque sabemos que se nos ha caído. Estamos en el 36% de la matrícula este año. Teníamos el 36,5% el año pasado. La verdad, quiero decirlo aquí, pensábamos que iba a caer más a partir de la cantidad de tiempo en huelga que estuvieron los profesores y hubo mucho esfuerzo local de algunos sostenedores por recuperar matrícula, y eso también es una mezcla. Por un lado cae, pero por otro lado en muchos establecimientos sube la matrícula. En ese esfuerzo, efectivamente, el tema de la calidad del establecimiento, de la calidad educativa del establecimiento, pasa a ser clave. Tenemos entonces el tema de la educación parvularia, tenemos subsecretaría, vamos a tener estándares que hoy día no tenemos, nosotros no sabemos si esta educadora lo hace mejor que la otra, sabemos que es más cariñosa, que al niño le cae bien en el jardín, pero no tenemos estándares porque no sabemos, todavía no hemos socializado y en eso estamos trabajando, qué debe estimularse en un niño de 3 años, de 4 años, etc. Entonces creemos que esto es un ciclo que aunque esté fuera de la escuela propiamente tal, el 90% de los niños de preescolar, o sea, parvulario, se atienden en el sector público. Por lo tanto, hay un momento que la familia decide si me voy por este camino o por el otro camino. Que se vaya por el camino que prefiera, pero sabiendo cuáles son las fortalezas de cada uno de los caminos. Ese es un tema muy importante. Tenemos en materia de la educación escolar como cambios estructurales que tienen que ir acompañados de este tema de la calidad. Primero, la ley que estamos discutiendo hoy en el Parlamento, que es la nueva educación pública y que lo que busca es transferir desde los municipios a sistemas locales de educación focalizados en todo el tema de administración escolar y en el cual tiene que haber una componente muy fuerte de apoyo, de perfeccionamiento, de calidad y no solo aparte los aspectos administrativos que siempre estarán presentes. Y con este sistema local lo que queremos, respecto a la frase que decía una de las directoras, mejorar la raqueta y tirarle menos pelota. Eso sería realmente un gran logro del sistema. Mejorar la raqueta y tirar. ¿Y por qué lo digo? Porque efectivamente una parte importante hoy día del quehacer de un director son muchos aspectos administrativos. El sistema de aseguramiento de la calidad tiene que ser eso, un sistema de aseguramiento de la calidad coordinado entre las distintas estructuras que lo componen y no una molestia que se le va superponiendo al colegio. Llegó la superintendencia, después llegó la agencia de la calidad, después la división de educación general, que es la subsecretaría, el mismo día o al día siguiente vuelve con otra, y después tenemos el tema de la participación del Consejo Nacional de Educación. Esas 4 estructuras que forman parte del sistema de aseguramiento de la calidad, nuestro gran esfuerzo como coordinadores, como ministerio de ese sistema, es realmente proponer medidas que van dirigidas al sostenedor, medidas que van dirigidas al colegio. Ya hemos logrado un logro no menor, y es que disminuir la cantidad de pruebas censales en el país, tener pruebas muestrales y tener pruebas como la de segundo básico, lectura, que sean los propios colegios y sus profesores quienes las apliquen, porque ahí el sistema no es andar rankeando si este colegio aprendió a leer en segundo, este no. Lo que requiere el colegio es saber y tener ese instrumento para la mejora interna, para los refuerzos y el apoyo. Aquí tenemos que cambiar sustantivamente, culturalmente, lo que significa tener instrumentos de medición de calidad con el ranking accionario de los colegios. O sea, todos hemos visto el que pasa es el rey de sacar los primeros 100 colegios de Chile en función solo del CIMSE. Y este año, y en la cuenta que se dio del CIMSE de cuarto, sexto, segundo, cuarto y sexto, lo que se planteó fue efectivamente los otros componentes. Los componentes de valoración, los componentes de esto, yo lo contaba el otro día y quiero reiterarlo acá, lo más preocupante para mí, los niños, el sistema aumenta 1 punto por año, si medimos más o menos la cantidad de años, hay colegios que avanzan bastante más, en el que dimos a conocer el CIMSE había avanzado 42 puntos, un colegio Héroes de Yungay, de la Municipalidad de La Granja, o sea, se puede. Lo que nos demuestra eso es que sí se puede, con niños vulnerables exactamente igual, con energía, con ganas, con buen equipo directivo, se puede la mejora. Pero lo más preocupante fue lo que dijeron los niños de cuarto básico. Los niños, en general de cuarto básico, casi el 50% de los niños dijo que tenía poca confianza en su capacidad de aprender. O sea, eso nos tiene que golpear el alma más que el punto más en matemática o los 2 puntos en lenguaje. O sea, ¿cómo en cuarto básico, un niño pequeño, tiene esta sensación de lo que le va a pasar para la vida. ¿Qué hemos hecho dentro de la escuela y en la familia para que el niño no tenga confianza en sí mismo, de que él puede aprender y desarrollar sus talentos, que es lo más importante tal vez? Y quiero irme claramente a, esto lo tenemos en educación básica, vamos a desmunicipalizar el sistema educativo, porque este no puede estar sujeto a la calidad de la educación de un niño hacia el municipio. Al alcalde le importa el tema, le pone más empeño. Si el alcalde tiene más plata, le pone un poquito más de plata. Si el alcalde prefiere iluminar la plaza y recoger a tiempo la basura, le pone menos energía. Y todavía los alcaldes hablan de los servicios traspasados. O sea, como que nunca los sintieron como propios, sino que son servicios traspasados, porque así fue, se pescó el servicio y se le tiró a los 345 sostenedores que son los municipios. Esto, la idea, habían sectores que decían que se queden los municipios que lo hacen bien con la escuela. Nosotros hemos dicho, entrarán al final del proceso, pero van a entrar todos porque no podemos dejar sujeto un sistema a el alcalde de turno que hay en esa municipalidad. A lo mejor el actual lo hace estupendo, el que venga no lo va a hacer tan bien y los niños van a tener dos subsistemas en el sector público. Eso está avanzando, ya pasó por la Comisión de Educación de la Cámara, está en la Comisión de Hacienda de la Cámara. Nosotros creemos que de aquí a 3, 4 meses debiéramos tener el proyecto, que va a ser gradual, como tienen que ser los cambios. No es que se nos vengan todos los colegios de una vez, ninguna capacidad de absorber eso, va a ser gradual. El otro tema muy importante, no me voy a detener en él, solo mencionárselo, es educación técnico-profesional. Estamos trabajando en una política técnica profesional con marco de cualificaciones para algunas carreras en particular y sobre todo haciendo la trayectoria entre lo que es la educación secundaria y la educación terciaria. Queremos claramente dibujar en el proyecto de educación superior, del cual no voy a hablar hoy día porque estamos en lo escolar, pero dibujar claramente 2 tracks en el sistema. Uno es el técnico profesional, que tiene que tener su calidad en sí mismo, que tiene que tener pruebas de admisión propia, que tiene que tener manera, pero que no es un tema que no pueda el alumno que entró a técnico profesional se quede pegado eternamente, porque muchas veces entran porque la familia piensa que es lo único que les pueden dar. El alumno puede irse a dar la PSU normal y entrar al sistema educativo. De hecho, quiero decirle que el 80% del programa PASE hoy día de apoyo para ingresar a la educación superior se hace con colegios técnicos profesionales, que son muchas veces los más vulnerables, se está trabajando ahí. Pero no queremos que el alumno se anotó en periodismo, en sociología, en pedagogía, en no sé qué, y no quedó en nada, entonces fue a la técnica. No, queremos que la técnica sea una cosa, y eso es un cambio cultural del país. El país, cuando habla de educación superior, tiende a hablar de las universidades, nunca habla de los institutos y de los CFT. Y ese es un tema para nosotros muy, muy importante. Y es un tema que va a salir en este apoyo a los directores. O sea, los directores, el 40% de la matrícula está en educación técnica profesional. Por lo tanto, ¿qué es ser un director de un colegio técnico profesional? Que trabaja con profesores, con pedagogía, con ramos, pero también de repente tiene al mecánico, que es el que sabe de mecánica. Es más fácil a un mecánico darle un baño de pedagogía que a un pedagogo transformarlo en mecánico. Entonces, tenemos mucho... Es un profesorado diferente y eso va a ser un gran desafío, sin lugar a duda, pero eso es parte también de los cambios. Sobre la ley de inclusión, solamente la voy a mencionar, la ley de inclusión está en plena instalación, tiene que ver con la educación básica y media, y quiero decirles que se plantearon las penas del infierno, iban a pasar cosas terribles. Afortunadamente no han pasado cosas terribles, ya tenemos 800 colegios en gratuidad, habiendo un plazo mayor, tenemos 400 colegios que entre marzo y abril han iniciado su traspaso a instituciones sin fines de lucro, y el próximo año en Magallanes se pone a prueba un sistema que permita realmente cómo se resuelve cuando tengo más demanda que oferta de espacio, cómo se resuelve de una manera que no sea el colegio el que a dedo dice, esta familia me gustó, usted se quedó afuera, etc. Solo una anécdota, a mí en Ciudad de México me tocó visitar una escuela en que se hacía la selección de los niños que iban en la tarde y en la mañana. Se sabía que los niños de la mañana eran los niños que les iba a ir mejor, porque estamos hablando de primero básico, les iba a ir mejor, no sabemos. Y en la tarde iban los niños que les iba a ir menos mejor, para decirlo de esa manera. Bueno, y ahí una directora tomaba nota, venía la señora con su niño, mañana. Venía otro y decía, la tarde, mañana, la tarde. Y yo le pregunto, ¿y en base a qué usted define lo que van a un lado o van a otro lado? Y ella me decía, en el color del delantal de la niñita y en la cinta y el peinado. Mientras más tirante, más cinta blanca, ahí había una mamá, según ellas, que se iba a preocupar del niño. Y por lo tanto, la selección no era por el niño, era por homo, habríamos dicho. ¿Ah? ¿Cuánto homo le puso al delantal? Tenía más posibilidades de ir a la básica y a la media. Lo cuento como un caso más anecdótico, pero que refleja esta situación que es el colegio, el que define, de alguna manera en eso, estás definiendo el futuro de muchísimos niños y jóvenes a futuro. Aquí la idea es que sea al revés. Ese es el proyecto también de este nivel educativo. Y quiero decirles, para terminar, que en materia de leyes y de apoyo estructurales, junto con los servicios locales, está la carrera docente. O sea, la carrera docente es un tema no solo que ha pedido el gremio durante mucho tiempo, sino que todos los estudios demuestran que dentro de los estándares, dentro de lo que es lo que se paga, lo que reconoce la sociedad al mundo docente, tenía serias y graves limitaciones. Serias y graves limitaciones. Y así como tenían la suerte de ir a una universidad que más o menos la pedagogía tenía un peso específico, estaba apoyada en investigación, etcétera, también ha sido una carrera ¿cómo se llama?, de pizarrón, de tiza y pizarrón, barata, y tenemos una oferta de formación de profesores a lo largo del país, muchas veces eran los institutos, después pasó la carrera a tener exigencia de ser universitaria y además la carrera pasó a tener la obligación de estar acreditada. Esas son mejoras que se le pusieron en el camino, pero la verdad de las cosas es que tenemos ahora, por un lado va a ir un incentivo al retiro, que se mantiene para los profesores que ya cumplieron la edad, pero también tenemos una carrera docente que hace más exigente la entrada, más peso a las universidades en su etapa formadora y también este acompañamiento durante un año de los profesionales que ya se titularon para empezar sus clases y su inserción en el colegio. Y finalmente los tramos de la carrera que le dice en base a qué usted va a ir subiendo sus ingresos, ni un profesor esté en la condición que esté, disminuye los ingresos y en promedio parten aumentando 30% sus ingresos. Le quiero decir que solo la política de carrera docente significa una inversión, porque no es un gasto, es una inversión de aproximadamente 2.200 millones de dólares para este punto de la reforma que es carrera docente. Por lo tanto, amigas y amigos, estos cambios, mejores profesores, mejor pagados, mejor valorados por la sociedad, no va a ser mañana, no va a ser mañana, esto está en el mediano plazo. Y ahí es que nos hemos planteado, y le decía yo, le comentaba a Gonzalo Muñoz, ojalá muchos cargos pudieran tener la posibilidad de tener una inducción, una formación, etcétera. Pero creo que poder redondear la reforma con esta formación, esta capacitación, este aprender entre pares, esto de investigar sobre problemáticas, alimentar a los servicios locales, alimentar al Ministerio de Educación sobre este tema, porque en esto queremos ser socios, no estamos externalizando una tarea, estamos buscando socios para aprender mejor, porque el Estado hasta aquí ha sido solo subsidiario, ha sido caja pagadora de un conjunto de acciones, pero hoy día tiene que hacerse cargo de toda la educación pública a través de los servicios locales. Queremos hacerlo mejor, queremos que el centro de perfeccionamiento vuelva a ser clave en la formación de profesores. Queremos que la División de Educación General aprenda de estos consorcios y las políticas que impulsemos conversen con lo que nos están sugiriendo desde la investigación, desde la acción en terreno. Y en ese sentido queremos apoyarlo. Esto está previsto para 4 años de trabajo conjunto, 4 y medio, pero si nos va bien, ¿por qué no seguir? Digo yo, ¿por qué no seguir? Pero tenemos que poner acento. Y solamente quisiera hacer una pedida finalmente a nuestros decanos, vicerrector y también al director de este lanzamiento de este centro tan importante. Primero, no nos olvidemos de lo preescolar. Yo no quisiera que lo preescolar, fuera de la sala de clase o dentro, o sea, fuera del colegio o dentro del establecimiento, queden al margen de una capacidad de dirección de mejor nivel. Hay un estudio que demuestra que en los jardines, aproximadamente, lo hizo Mariana Elwin y su equipo, nos mostró los resultados. Los niños hablan, se expresan oralmente en promedio 10 minutos al día. 10 minutos al día. Entonces, ¿qué estamos haciendo? Puro aprendizaje de normas, de lavarnos los dientes, de ir al baño, tirar la cadena, lavarnos las manos, jugar. Yo creo que los niños tienen un espacio que ojalá no jueguen, no hagan nada. El juego es fundamental, pero creo que el desarrollo del lenguaje es un tema, me imagino, muy importante en ese nivel y no lo estamos enfocando tan fuertemente. Asumir en este trabajo también este cambio del rol del ministerio a partir de los servicios locales. O sea, que los directores de colegios conozcan la reforma y conozcan cómo la reforma puede impactarlos para bueno, esperemos que todo para bueno, nada para malo, pero cuáles son las cosas que le cambian al colegio por entrar en la reforma. Si no es en este espacio, tendríamos que repetir todo este esfuerzo con miles de directores para que el ministerio dijera, si ustedes tienen una reunión grande en que hay que explicar algo de la reforma, aprovechemos ese espacio para que vayamos de la mano y no como que quedemos, no sé en qué consiste, no sé responderle, no sé qué decirle a los directores, cuándo entran, cuándo no entran, cuándo entran las educadoras de párvulo, para que se vayan con algún dato, las educadoras de párvulo entran en función del mismo colegio, las que están en kinder y prekinder, y las otras cuando tengamos los estándares de buena calidad, que será en un par de años más. Y finalmente, sacarle una cosa que me dio mucho gusto lo que se presentó aquí. La nueva educación pública tiene que potenciar el territorio y los talentos y capacidades de cada colegio que son distintos. Hay colegios, siempre habrá un profesor, un director que le gustó el tema, que le dio por la ciencia, tiene una gran academia de ciencia. ¿Cómo hacemos en este trabajo en red territorial que cada colegio sea nodo de algo? O por lo menos no todos los colegios son nodos, pero sí tenemos 6, 7 colegios en un territorio que son nodos respecto a la red. Uno le va bien en deporte, potenciemos el deporte, entreguémosle recursos a ese colegio para que arme el interescolar, para que arme la feria del deporte, para que la educación sea una cosa activa y no solo sea matemática y lenguaje, siendo las habilidades básicas. Otro colegio tiene una gran orquesta o tiene una banda, la Big Band de Conchalí. Bueno, la Big Band de Conchalí a esta altura por suerte es de Conchalí, no es de la escuela tanto, pero yo creo que tenemos que ir a un trabajo en red con el arte, con la música, con el teatro, con la ciencia, con el debate, con cosas que nos muestren que esto es un sistema y esto no es una peineta que de un sostenedor bajan los distintos dientes de la peineta, unos cortitos, otros más largos, sino un trabajo de pares en red que realmente muestre que aquí hay un cambio. Hay un cambio, que toda esta reforma tiene un sentido, un origen y un final, que se llama los niños y niñas jóvenes de este país en una mejor calidad, en un país más inclusivo, menos segregador, y a eso está la apuesta. ¿Podemos mejorar los cambios estructurales? Seguramente. ¿Van a hacer todo lo bueno, todo lo rápido? Es un poquito, don Patricio Elwin nos dijo, en la medida de lo posible, pero creo que estamos haciendo más allá de la medida de lo posible. Creo que esto es un esfuerzo sistémico que va desde la educación parvularia hasta la educación superior. Y eso, evidentemente, cuando ya tenemos en el mundo escolar, salvo lo que nos queda de nueva educación pública, todos sus elementos están considerados, salvo lo que pase en educación superior, con las carreras, que no van a tener mayor cambio de eso, sino que porque ya tienen exigencia de poder ser carreras acreditadas y que vengan a estudiar pedagogía, gente que tiene vocación para el trabajo, vocación, y la vocación también se reparte pareja. Y así como antes hay vocación en alumnos de niveles socioeconómicos altos, que la familia es la que le dice, pero ¿cómo te va a ir a pedagogía? Sacaste toda esa cantidad de puntaje y te va a ir a pedagogía. Bueno, hoy día se puede ir a pedagogía porque su futuro está también mejor garantizado. Y en el nivel socioeconómico más bajo, ¿cómo vas a estudiar sociología si no tengo para pagarte? Te tienes que ir al CFT de la esquina o a las academias, que no hemos estudiado ese punto. Algún día yo le pido a la universidad y a lo mejor con el ministerio, investiguemos qué son las miles de academias que para funcionar, que capacitan a mucha gente en 3 meses, en 6 meses, 8 meses, y que no las estamos tratando en esta reforma que va a quedar pendiente, y saber qué es lo que le ofrecen a los alumnos, y que finalmente es el destino de mucha gente que pudo haber sido pedagogo, pero que la familia no dio para más. Creo que el avance en gratuidad, creo que las becas, creo que el pase pueden ser elementos que realmente emparejen la cancha para todos los que tengan vocación de profesor, y además que realmente podamos tener el día de mañana una preparación, que ya la vamos a tener con estos centros, pero que además podamos tener una preparación y un reconocimiento de lo que significa ser director de establecimiento, director o directora de establecimiento. Les deseo mucho éxito en este trabajo que emprendemos juntos y estaremos todo lo conectados que sea necesario y posible. Muchas gracias.
Bien, agradecemos a la ministra de Educación, que entiendo se debe retirar ahora porque tiene que cumplir con otros compromisos agendados con anterioridad, así que le agradecemos a la ministra por su presentación y por sus palabras de bienvenida en el día de hoy, así que agradecemos la presencia de la ministra de Educación, la señora Adriana del Piano. Bien, mientras agradecemos nuevamente a la ministra, para continuar y para comenzar con las conferencias, uno de los desafíos actuales en materia de la educación tiene que ver, entre otras cosas, con el fortalecimiento del liderazgo directivo y pedagógico. En este contexto, generar espacios que permitan intercambiar experiencias y lecciones aprendidas en torno a estos temas, por supuesto, es un aporte al debate actual. Es por eso que el CEDLE ha querido contribuir en la generación de estos espacios, abonando en la experiencia de California, contando con la valiosa participación y experiencia de la señora Judith Warren Little y de la señora Rebecca Cheung, ambas de la Universidad de Berkeley, Universidad Socia Estratégica del CEDLE. Es por eso que a continuación vamos a invitar a la señora Judith Warren Little, doctora en Sociología académica y exdecana de la Escuela de Graduados de la Universidad de Berkeley, a dar su conferencia titulada Los directivos escolares y el fomento de las comunidades de aprendizaje entre docentes. Antes de su presentación, les vamos a recordar a ustedes también que esta conferencia de la señora Warren Little va a estar siendo traducida al español a través del sistema de traducción simultánea y además transmitida vía streaming a través de la página web de nuestro centro, que es www.cedle.cl. Y además, durante la presentación, ustedes nos pueden hacer llegar sus preguntas en español a través de las hojas que están en sus carpetas que retiraron en la mesa de acreditación, preguntas que vamos a seleccionar y vamos a leer al final de esta presentación. Le damos la bienvenida entonces a la presentación de la señora Judith Warren Little.
Then I can start, okay.
Yeah, use a clicker.
Yeah.
I'm going to have this for the end because you
For-
don't need it now.
I don't need it now.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
going to be there in case you need something.
Okay, great, thank you. Good morning, buenos dias. I'm honored this week to make my first visit to Chile and have the opportunity to learn about the Chilean educational system. My colleagues and I at Berkeley really welcomed the opportunity to join this center. We have a long history of caring deeply about the capacity of schools to respond to what have been persistent inequities in American education, and we in particular have invested a great deal of our resources and our interest in leadership education and in research on the actions of principals, their ability to work with teachers to improve schools. I've been deeply impressed this week by the serious attention given to education here. In fact, I wish the attention that we saw in California was as deep and as serious and as widespread as I've seen here. I understand, and I've just, of course, as much as I was able to follow of the minister's comments, I'm aware of new initiatives underway here in Chile that are intended to enhance the career of teachers. I think we share many challenges in common, and we also have the opportunity to learn from one another. I think I just realized this morning that the size of the workforce in Chile, about 160,000 teachers, 20,000 principals, is about the same, a little smaller, than the workforce in California, the state where I work and have the deepest knowledge. I think we have, Rebecca can check me, I think we have about 200,000 teachers, probably about the corresponding number of principals. What we don't have that Chile has clearly developed and made a high priority is a real system of preschool education, and this is a place I hope we can learn a lot from you. In my own research, I have focused on the study of teachers' work, teachers' careers, and the school as a workplace. I've spent a great deal of time in schools, observing teachers at work, both in and out of classrooms, talking with them, talking with school leaders, and learning from them about their experience. One insight I think I've developed over that time is that teachers are far more likely to create a powerful learning environment for their students if their own workplace, the school, is also a powerful learning environment for them. So I just want to take a moment, and the next 3 slides are not in your folder, but I want to take a moment to just look at the 3 pictures that are on this slide. Whoops, too fast. There we go. This is a group of high school mathematics teachers participating in an activity that they designed as part of a week-long professional development event. In this picture, they're working on an algebra activity that they plan to use with their students. They are considering how it might support students' learning, and they are trying to anticipate where students might have difficulty. In this picture, an English teacher and a social studies teacher are reading student essays. They are attending an after-school meeting at which they and several other teachers and the school principal, in this case, are considering how they might support better writing across all subjects in the school. Finally, here we have a primary teacher holding up a sample of work that students developed as they completed a science experiment in grade 2. She and her primary grade colleagues have been working together with a university researcher to help young children learn how to think scientifically by formulating questions to explore and by linking their observations to inferences. And by the way, this group of teachers, through their work, discovered that young children have the capacity to reason scientifically much above the level that was anticipated by our state standards. So one question we might ask is, how do the principals and other school leaders in each of these schools enable this kind of collaboration and learning among teachers? I will return to the example of the mathematics group later in this talk to describe in more detail how they work together and what they were able to accomplish the student outcomes that were associated with their work. So, I begin with two premises. First, that teachers are a school's most important resource. And second, to make the most of that resource requires effective leadership by principals, by other school leaders, the technical chief, the inspector, for example, and by teachers themselves. So here briefly is an outline of the talk. It's got 5 parts. I want to begin with just acquainting you with the current enthusiasm with what are called professional learning communities in the US. I always worry a little bit when things develop capital letters or become an acronym, PLC. And we could talk perhaps more about that during the question and answer period. Nonetheless, there is a press toward the development of these professional learning communities. Second, I want to just briefly acquaint you with the current profile of the teacher workforce in the US, because I'd be interested in learning how it compares to Chile, but also because it creates a context in which support for a teacher community becomes more important. Third, I want to sort of do a brief survey or summary of lessons learned from 40 years of research on teachers' professional relationships. And I've been doing this research for 40 years. I worked with a group of doctoral students this week, and one of the things they said to me, I talked about my earliest studies, and they said, we weren't born yet. So it tells me how long I have been at this work. Fourth, I want to give some examples, real-life examples, and I'll highlight that mathematics group of strong professional community and the contribution of leaders to it. And finally, I'll close with some leverage points, places where leaders can influence teachers' professional work together, as well as a role for faculties of education. All right, so the next slide is also a new slide, but I thought we might benefit from a definition. So in English, this definition reads, broadly speaking, we use the term professional community to refer to schools in which interaction among teachers is frequent and teachers' actions are governed by shared norms focused on the practice and improvement of teaching and learning. This quote comes from a study by Anthony Bryk, B-R-Y-K, unusual name, and his colleagues in Chicago, but I think it works reasonably well as a broad definition. So, this slide is one indication of the current enthusiasm for a professional learning community among the individuals, the groups, the organizations that provide improvement-oriented services to schools and districts. These are often nonprofit organizations. They organize conferences. As you can see, they've written books that are directed toward teachers and school leaders. They're meant for practitioners to help develop professional learning community. Now, this enthusiasm, I think, does respond to the decades of research that show what teachers can accomplish by working together, even in challenging conditions. You could think in a world where the demands on teachers are steadily increasing, perhaps it's a good idea to think about helping schools and school systems shift from isolation to collaboration, from organizing teaching as a kind of high wire act, teachers managing sometimes with difficulty on their own, to a structure and culture of mutual support. The good news is that the enthusiasm for teacher collaboration and community is consistent with what we've learned from research. The bad news, or at least a significant problem, is that implementation is often superficial. It is often because it's been linked to the accountability movement. It's been narrowly focused on looking at data from student testing. It, from the perspective of teachers, has been often driven by agendas that do not reflect teachers' own needs, their own interests, their own concerns, and their own ambitions. In fact, when some of the books from the earlier slide began to be published and districts began requiring teachers to become part of these professional learning communities, I received email communication from teachers around the country who had read some of my work and who said, I don't think this is what you had in mind. So we do have, on the one hand, an effort to create community at scale, and at the other hand, a problem of implementation that we do need to attend to. Principal's sense of urgency about this, however, and trying to promote professional community does come from the accountability environment in which schools are expected to respond to the public interest in effective education for all. And they come also from the current state of the teacher workforce. So I believe this is a situation that may have a parallel in Chile, but I would like to learn. The slide that I'm showing you here is from a national, our National Schools and Staffing Survey, which happens every few years. And I just want to point out here that the dark line is from 1987-1988 Schools and Staffing Survey. And you can see that there's sort of a predictable curve here where the most experienced teachers have a number of years of experience. The average is about 14 years in 1987-88, 15 years. And the mode, the year with the most teachers, corresponds to the average years, right? About 15 years. The light gray line is a very different profile. By 2007, 2008, the average was down around still right around 14, but the mode, the years with the most teachers was 1. All right, this was scary to me. It's moved a little bit now. By 2011, I think the modal year is about 5. But the main point here is that we have a skewing of the teacher workforce toward novice teachers, right? This chart does not show age, but in 2007, 2008, the median age was still over 50, 55, but by 2011, it was only 30. So we have a workforce that would benefit from the supports of professional community. We also have a situation in which the most inexperienced teachers are concentrated in the neediest schools, the highest need schools, the highest poverty schools, and the schools with the highest minority enrollment. These schools also experience the highest rates of teacher turnover. So with that background, that context, I want to turn to lessons from the research, and there are 5 lessons that I'll report. Lesson number 1, most schools remain socially and physically organized for independent or often isolated teacher work and not for collaboration. And here we have the image of the egg carton school, each egg in its own place. And this is a recurrent theme of research over time. So there's a signature study that is widely cited in the US context anyway by sociologist Daniel Lordy. He's the one who generated the image of the egg carton school, and he characterized teaching as lacking a shared technical culture, And working conditions in the school, he said, fostered an orientation toward individualism and a norm of privacy. So that's lesson number 1. Lesson number 2, however, is that there are important exceptions to this rule, to the isolation, and important contrasts that began to be apparent in the decades of research following Lordy. And Lordy's study was published in 1975, so this, we go back. So during the 1980s and 1990s, as there came to be more workplace studies, we found some significant exceptions. And here are 3 examples. The first is actually from a study I did in the late 70s and early 1980s that I'll describe a bit more in a minute, where we found that some schools were really characterized by significant norms of collegiality and innovation or experimentation. During the same decade, Susan Rosenholtz studied 78 primary schools and was able to distinguish schools that were learning enriched both for students and for teachers from those that were learning impoverished, for teachers anyway. The former schools, the learning enriched schools, were schools where there was a lot of sharing of ideas and materials. Teachers were willing to give one another advice, to ask for advice. There was an investment in professional learning activity. The third example here comes from a study of high schools, secondary schools in the 90s that I was also part of. We studied 16 schools in 2 states. The states varied in their policy environments, California, Michigan. 16 schools of different kinds, both large public secondary schools, smaller secondary schools, public, private. And what we found was a real distinction between weak teacher cultures, very individualistic, and strong teacher cultures where there was more of a collective presence. And I'll talk about that a little bit more as well. So I want to elaborate just a little bit on the first of those 3, the study that I did early in my career, because it's still, in many ways, it still is a good characterization of what we mean by a school with strong professional community. The teachers, or the schools in the study, were undergoing big external reforms and having to struggle with the demands of those reforms, but some schools were able to demonstrate strong academic performance and were able to have a real sense of adaptability to change. In those schools, we found frequent and specific talk among teachers about teaching and learning. Teachers were not just in their own classrooms. We found that teachers frequently observed each other at work. They were in and out of each other's classrooms. They were observed by the principal. They were able to talk in a very collegial way with their principal and with their peers and get feedback on their work. They shared ideas, they shared materials, they developed materials together. And finally, as some of them participated in professional development, they would come back to the school, they would teach one another, they would help one another learn. And they were very welcoming to beginning teachers, and they made sure that beginning teachers were off to a strong start. They were not left to sink or swim. That set of practices was joined to an attitude, a disposition, what I call a stance of inquiry or a stance of curiosity These were teachers who, if students were struggling, the teachers questioned their own practices. And they experimented and they innovated. Where we found those practices, we also found that the principal was actively involved in supporting them, finding time and space for teachers to meet, helping them connect to outside resources, sources of ideas, and so forth. So that was lesson 2. Lesson 3, unfortunately, these examples were rare. So here, mapping back to the 3 studies I told you about, in my early study, only 2 out of 6 schools, a primary school and a middle school, had cultures of this sort. The Rosenholz study in 1989, less than 1/5 of the 78 primary schools. In the McLaughlin and Talbert study of secondary schools, we found 3 out of the 16 secondary schools as a school had this kind of culture, and they were small schools. In the larger comprehensive high schools, community was more likely to be found at the department level, subject teachers, but really strong community where we could see the difference it made to students. Only 2 cases, one English department, one mathematics department, in 2 different schools, all right? So you have to ask the question about leadership there, what role a principal plays in a secondary school, what role the department leaders play to foster, to set a culture and to foster community. All right. So here is a display of that secondary school study showing the pattern. And I see, so we don't have a translation of 2 of the phrases, but but let me just walk through this. So we distinguish between weak communities, so I understand comunidad débil, is that right? Right? And strong community, comunidad fuerte, very fuerte, and traditional culture and innovative cultures. So a weak community we envision as an individualistic community. And in that community, nonetheless, you may have individual teachers who are very innovative, but they're working as individuals. So in one school, we found an actual culture that embraced innovation, but there wasn't much collaboration. A lot of teachers being innovative. So a student might experience one kind of innovation in a class over here in a very different way of conducting another class. So it didn't add up to a very coherent effect. Most of the schools had traditional cultures, teachers working alone in the classroom and very much working in a kind of traditional instructional mode. We found 3 schools with strong community, but it had a traditional orientation. These teachers were very close, but they were more likely to blame the students for their difficulties than to try to figure out ways to change their own practice. And then the strong, innovative community that you see down in the lower right-hand corner. So does it matter? Could we just hire well-prepared teachers, provide them with good materials, connect them to ongoing professional development they may need to do well as individuals? I think we should at least do that because teachers do work alone in classrooms much of the time, but it matters. We have growing evidence that schools where there is strong professional community are more likely to improve, more likely to narrow the gap of achievement between, for example, lower income, children from lower income families and more affluent children. So schools are more able to improve in difficult circumstances where they can really count on mutual support among teachers. We know that ambitious teaching and learning is difficult to achieve on a large scale, and it seems to me, anyway, that it's unlikely we will get there by placing the burden on the shoulders of teachers working independently. So building systems that enable ordinary people, we can't expect in a workforce of 200,000 in California, 160,000 in Chile, 3 million if you look at the United States overall. You can't expect to achieve these results by asking teachers to be heroes. We must build systems that enable ordinary people to do extraordinary work. So, one example comes from the Chicago study that was done throughout the 1990s by Breich and his colleagues. The book is called Organizing. There have been many publications, but this book, which came out in 2010, is called Organizing Schools for Improvement, Lessons from Chicago. And what they found was that in schools that improved, and they improved across income lines, they improved across race, these were urban, diverse schools, that there were 5 elements in place. Driven by, the most important element was leadership. Professional capacity is the element that we're focused on here today, but I want to make note of the others, because it's the professional capacity that allows you to build the others. And parent and community ties are particularly important here, because there was a small group of schools that did not improve. And they were clustered in very high poverty neighborhoods where there were few churches, few community-based organizations, and very high levels of unemployment. So the schools were not an island. You can't do this just by building professional community. But the professional capacity did allow the school to generate ties to community, to create a positive learning environment, and to have a coherent curriculum and set of instructional practices. So, as this group of researchers describes professional capacity, it includes professional community, but also access to professional development and an attitude, again, fostered by the leadership of we're here to improve our practice. We're here for students. So, I'm not going to go through all of these. We don't have enough time. But I just want to inventory 3 kinds of supports. There are structural supports, and perhaps the most important here, and one that I believe is addressed partly in your new law, is time. Teachers will say that the most instructional support for them is time. And so the ratio of in-class time, instructional time, to out-of-class time is crucially important. Many other countries have a more favorable ratio than we do in the US, but this becomes very important. And it becomes important as well to not describe the out-of-class time as non-teaching time. It is teaching time. Teachers do many things as teachers that are not just done in the classroom. So we need a favorable ratio of in-class to out-of-class time. And you can see the other structural supports. The cultural supports are crucial: norms, values, ways of being in the school. And the culture is perhaps the hardest, the most challenging to build. And finally, technical supports. People need good curriculum. They need tools for working together. Sometimes conversational protocols to just get them started, looking at student work, for example. So being able to think about what tools support collaboration becomes an important part of the structure of support. So I want to return to the mathematics group as an example of what we've learned from in-depth case studies. So this is a group I call the Algebra Group. It was 10 members of a 14-member mathematics department, and they all taught 9th grade algebra, and they all made an agreement to teach at least one section of algebra because 9th grade is a difficult transition year in our high schools. Students struggle, and they come in, this is a diverse urban school. Students come in often having failed at mathematics or had difficulty with mathematics, and this group of teachers wanted to make sure they had a successful start. So they all committed to working with the 9th grade students on algebra. They met once a week for 90 minutes after school on their own time. They also met for a week in the summer on their own time to make sure that they were organized to support students. They demonstrated a real depth of talk about teaching and learning. They made time to talk in detail about the mathematics they were teaching, the tasks they were using, how the students were responding to the tasks. In this picture, as I mentioned before, they're actually working, they're doing the mathematics task ahead of time so that they can really examine what the mathematics ideas are and think about what students, how students may reason about the mathematics. They've developed a set of routines for themselves. They have classroom routines that they all use, built around effective small group activity. And they've had to prepare their students to be effective members of a small group. They have conversational routines for taking up problems of practice when they meet together in their after-school meetings. They have curricular resources they've developed. They have what they call a group-worthy problem. They've built a curriculum around mathematics problems that have multiple solution paths, so they can have many contributions. The students can talk about how they got started with a problem, not just what the answer is. So they've really worked at teaching in a similar way in their classrooms and having routines that help them when they meet. They've cultivated leadership within their group. The department chair is the man sitting in the lower left. He's very well respected by the group. They've had a series of department chairs they describe as keepers of the culture. But every teacher in the group can take initiative to bring a problem forward, to generate an idea, to offer to demonstrate something from their own classroom. So leadership is very much valued in the group. Teachers taking initiative with one another to focus closely on matters of teaching and learning. And finally, this is a group that does a lot, learns a lot together, but they also value ties outside the school. They have sought out professional development in mathematics. They're very careful who they decide to let in as researchers. So they made agreements with us at Berkeley and with researchers at Stanford University to do research in their classrooms and on their activity as a department after long discussion with us, so that it was a partnership. They wanted to be able to have the research also be a source of professional development for them. And they've been very happy, actually, as have we. So this is a new slide. It's not in your packet, but I thought it would be more compelling to school leaders if they were to know, so what? What was the outcome? So in this case, several things. the students, so one of the studies compared this school with 2 suburban schools, higher socioeconomic status schools. When the students came to this school, the school we call Railside, they were 2 grade levels below the students in the comparison schools. By grade 11, they were ahead. So there was a higher level of mathematics achievement than the comparison schools with higher SCS and with fewer English language learners. So these teachers were accomplishing a lot with these students. And they had them in heterogeneous classes, mixed ability, mixed performance classes. There were more students at this school taking higher level mathematics. They had several sections of calculus and pre-calculus, more sections than the comparison schools. More students, when surveyed, said they enjoyed mathematics. And finally, the experience of learning mathematics from these teachers convinced these students, many of whom did not think before that they would go on to college, convinced them that they could go on to college, and they expressed an interest to continue studying mathematics. So these are persuasive outcomes, I think. So lesson 5, however, there are serious challenges as we try to build community of the sorts. When I talked before about the structural, cultural, and technical supports, there are challenges for us all in building this kind of community. In-class to out-of-class time ratio is perhaps the most important structural support, but also insufficient access to good professional development. The mathematics group was fortunate. Also, teachers talk about inadequate support from school leaders, not helping to make time or space, not helping to really build, send a message that collaboration is important. The cultural, the norms of privacy are an impediment, and just unfamiliarity with what it is like to participate in a strong teacher community. And teachers do have conflicting ideas about what is good teaching and what is good learning, and they have to find a way to work through those conflicts. And finally, there are technical supports where people just don't have the tools to get started. So, it's hard for teachers, I think, to reach the depth of collaboration that the mathematics group developed. As a starting point, they must really be committed to students and open to questioning their own practice, but they also must experience the supports of the kind I described. So, what can leaders do to influence teacher capacity and professional community? There are a number of things that leaders can do that are indirect. So, a school that has well-informed and timely hiring of teachers, of new teachers, makes a difference. Choosing teachers, for example, who demonstrate or express a commitment to work with others. The mathematics group was actually had been granted a lot of control over hiring by the principal, and they advertised for new positions by saying, we work collaboratively. We won't let you, a new teacher, struggle, but we do work together. If you don't want to work this way, this is not the right place for you. So well-informed and timely hiring in a school makes a difference. Appropriate teaching assignments. We have a number of, particularly at the secondary level, of teachers who are asked to teach subjects or grade levels for students that they're not prepared to teach. Curricular materials consistent with ambitious goals. High-quality professional development. Creating mechanisms for teachers to participate in decision-making and to take collective responsibility for student success. And finally, effective teacher evaluation. Many of our principals have not been prepared to really have an idea what to look for in a classroom and how to give feedback. Others have, and where principals have been prepared to observe rigorously with sensitivity and with a set of ideas that they've talked through with their teachers, where we are on common ground about what's important to look for, and where they've been prepared to have discussions. That makes a difference. And finally, a role for faculties of education. This center is located in universities, all right? The universities, we need to be prepared to prepare teachers who come into teaching, prepared to engage seriously with their colleagues, and have had that experience as beginning teachers. We need to be preparing school leaders who know how to support, who do both manage the school, but also have instructional leadership and can build this kind of culture, and conducting research that will help move us forward. So, over time, my colleagues and I have had occasion to study numerous schools, departments, grade level teams, reform networks. We've always been impressed with what robust professional community can accomplish, how it relies on the initiative taken by teachers themselves, but how much it has operated against the grain of the institution in most places. What has been constant has been the ability to locate teachers, sometimes entire schools, where community is thriving and leadership encouraged. So a colleague of mine is fond of saying, we get the schools, teachers, and teaching we organize for. And it's worth the hard work of organizing for a robust professional community of teachers committed to the success and well-being of students. Thank you.
Bien, agradecemos la presentación de la señora Judith Warren Little, la primera presentación que tenemos en el día de hoy. Vamos a comenzar y a presentar la siguiente presentación. Y les vamos a recordar también que las preguntas las vamos a responder al final de las dos presentaciones, así que les vamos a invitar para que escriban sus preguntas en las hojas que están en sus carpetas. Tenemos también a dos de nuestras asistentes que ustedes pueden levantar su mano. Ellas van a llegar hacia ustedes para retirar sus preguntas. Ahí están nuestras asistentes, pueden levantar su mano y también ustedes levantan su mano para entregar sus preguntas correspondientes. Vamos entonces a continuación a invitar a la señora Rebecca Cheung. Ella es doctora en educación académica y directora del Instituto de Liderazgo Directivo de la Universidad de Berkeley, a dar su conferencia titulada Los directivos escolares y el uso de datos para la mejora de su establecimiento, la experiencia de California. Les vamos a recordar también que esta conferencia será traducida también al español a través del sistema de traducción simultánea y también transmitida a través de la página web vía streaming www.cedle.cl. Y también vamos a esperar también sus preguntas para la señora Rebecca Cheung. Invito entonces a continuación y le damos la bienvenida a la señora Rebecca Cheung con su presentación y la recibimos con un gran aplauso.
Buenos dias. It has been my honor to be here in Chile this week, my first time in Latin America. And yes, as the minister said, I've experienced many things this week. But for me, it's been an exciting time to see the great interest in your country on this very important issue of education. And I know that for many of you, it was a great effort to come. And I just am truly honored and encouraged by your commitment to improving your country. As was mentioned in my introduction, I am the director of the Principal Leadership Institute at UC Berkeley. This is a master's program that prepares teachers who are interested in becoming principals. I came to the university 5 years ago from the world of practice. I was a teacher in the local public schools at the elementary level, and then an assistant principal, kind of like your inspector, same type of position. And then I was an elementary principal, a middle school principal, and I also worked in the district office. So I have a very different background than Judith, although I'm also grateful to be with her here this week, as Judith was my advisor when I completed my doctoral studies at the University of California. And I don't think we in the United States have ever spent an entire week together, Judith. So this was also a special opportunity for me. And first I'm going to tell you a little bit about our work, and then we'll talk more about the research and specifically about this issue of assessment. Let's see here. Okay. Yes. In California, principals are required to have a license. The license comes in 2 parts and has several requirements. You can get your license to be an administrator after you've completed 5 years of full-time teaching and all of your teacher credentialing, which is also in 2 parts. It should be noted also that principals are required to have an additional special teaching license for teaching populations we call English learners, essentially immigrant children who come to California and are in need of special instruction to learn English. And then the licensing happens in 2 parts to become a school leader. First, pre-service in preparation, which at our university includes a master's degree and the license. And then after you obtain a position, we complete the second part of the licensing, which is done in a 2-year format where half of the time is spent with individual coaching and mentoring at school sites for leaders, as well as professional learning. And so our institute is comprised of all of these levels of work. We provide the preparation program for the master's degree and the first part of the license. We provide in what we call induction, which is the completion of the second part of the certificate. And then finally, we also provide professional development. I want to also note that the mission of our organization is to provide leaders for serving the schools with the most vulnerable populations in California. Sometimes guests at our university, because of the international prestige, think that or assume that we prepare leaders for the most affluent schools or the most high-performing schools. But in fact, this is not our focus, and it is our intention to prepare leaders to improve the schools for whom we call the most historically underserved and vulnerable populations. And so the topic of today is instructional leadership, or perhaps a better translation for you might be how leaders improve teaching and learning. And we'll borrow from Hallinger's definition, which says that, yes, I'm on the right slide, that leaders create a sense of purpose, focusing on student learning, fostering continuous improvement which Judith has already described in depth to you in the prior presentation, developing this climate of improving teaching and learning as well, coordinating the curriculum and monitoring student outcomes, which is part of what we'll discuss today, providing ongoing development of staff, and being visible and modeling learning. And so we have the same value and belief as your ministry and also the center that creating superhero leaders is an impossible task. Instead, we should focus on collective and collaborative and distributed configurations of leadership in order to do our work better. Simply asking one overworked person to do more work is not going to accomplish very much. And so one of the things I have the privilege of doing as the director of the Institute is I have the opportunity to teach my students about how to use data to improve instruction. Now, the word data could also be evidence or assessment results, could be many different things. And our program has over 500 graduates now, and I have lots of opportunity to hear from them and hear their concerns. So I start today's talk by telling you a little bit about their feelings around the mandates for using data, because they are mandated and required in not only California, but around the nation. So I often ask my students to pick a picture these are the exact pictures I use, that express their current feeling about the mandate to use data to improve their schools. So I'll give you a moment to pick something that you respond to on the diagram. And here are some of the responses my students and practicing leaders associate with each of these images. First, the light bulb. For the light bulb, the students who pick this picture have a positive association with using data. This means they've had success, they've been well supported, and perhaps have had modeling on how to do this work effectively. They often feel empowered by having evidence to inform their decision making. This image may have a slightly different meaning in a Catholic society. For my students, the ones who are drawn to this image are either very intimidated and scared about having to use data, or they're using it as a sign of hope. I hope that our scores will be higher, or I hope that we're doing the right thing. And third image is often thought of in two ways. Some students and leaders feel that data gives them power to advocate because there's power in numbers. And others see it as a compliance mandate using data, and so they're just, in English, there's an expression called powering through it, just getting to the end of the request. And this image is often thought of again in multiple ways. One group of leaders and teachers often worry that the system judges our students by their test scores, when in fact there are human beings. And another group is frustrated with their own capacity to use the information to improve their leadership. The image of the students is often focused on the impact of over-testing on the curriculum, that maybe we give them so many tests, we don't have such an interesting curriculum that's filled with other subjects. And also this is a helpful reminder to our leaders that our actions are for the benefit of the students, and they are the center of our daily work. For people who are excited, they tend to really like numbers. Maybe they were good math students in school, or they have had experiences and training in the inquiry process, and they see the power and interest of this image. So I hope this short walk down the reactions of my students and the leaders in California gives you a taste of the challenges we experience across the system in this area. Now, one of the reasons why there are variations in responses towards the mandate to use data has to do with external accountability, which in our country is at both the federal level and the state level. We have both. And the fear of being judged for high-stakes decisions based on scores instead of knowing the school or knowing the students and the local context. And so I won't go into great detail about this, but I think it's worth mentioning that especially the two recent federal policies around school accountability have created much of the nervousness, anxiety, and in some cases, unhappiness with the mandates. The first external law that focused on this was No Child Left Behind of 2001 under President Bush. And I won't go into, I provided some slides for background information here for you, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time except to say that schools were either meeting standard or not meeting standard. There were only two categories. And so you can imagine how the principals in the schools not meeting the standard felt, and that was a very harsh system. And then, and mostly this system focused on a concept of equality. So this is a political cartoon that was largely used to criticize this accountability measure, where there is a teacher. Is everyone with me? Okay, and the students are, the teacher students are a dog, a seal, a fish, an elephant, a penguin, a monkey, and a bird. And then the teacher sitting behind his desk says, for a fair selection, everyone has to take the same exam. The exam is, please climb the tree. Well, the monkey will probably do well on the exam, maybe even if the teacher was not a good teacher. And the goldfish is going to have problems. So the idea here is that treating all students and schools equally through the same measure is a little bit more complicated than that. And so now the discussions in our country in accountability have turned to a concept of equity in contrast to equality. And this visual explains the new concept. Thus, the goal here is for everyone to ring the bell. On the left side, you see that everyone is given the same amount of help to ring the bell. The tall person is successful, the middle person is also successful, and the short person needs more help. The short person is below standard, did not ring the bell. And so this is the equality model, the same treatment. In the equity model, everyone receives the amount of help they need in order to meet the standard. As it turns out, the tall person is like the monkey from the prior cartoon. Doesn't need any extra help. They can reach the bell. And then the middle person just needs one block, and the short person actually gets 2 blocks so that they can also be successful. So these two pictures present in in great summary, summarize the debates about accountability in our country and the differences in how we describe and expect students to improve. And so we also have a new law in California, which is now the ESSA, which I will talk about in a little bit, that replaced the original law. So we're no longer using No Child Left Behind. A few of the other challenges that I've mentioned previously, oh, I need to advance this one, is criticisms when you have such stringent and rigid testing and accountability is the problem, the unintended consequence of narrowing, what we call narrowing the curriculum. No longer focusing on music or art or science or history, which for many students are the most exciting subjects. For me personally, music was more exciting than anything else. And then you have this issue of test preparation. So we had a very strong movement spent on teaching children how to take tests, multiple choice tests, money spent on curriculum that was focused on teaching children how to take tests. And these unintended consequences have serious repercussions, especially in the underperforming schools, quote unquote, which of course are the schools with our most vulnerable populations. The next slide I added after my talk in Temuco, so I'm sorry it's not in your packet. I was asked a question about what we think are the leadership attributes that are effective for improving schools. And so I decided to share at least a little bit about that. So we believe that there are 7 major competency areas for leadership in the area of equity and social justice. The first 3 are what we call internal or inward facing. The last 4 are external or outward facing. Specifically, presence and attitude is about the leader's sense of the possible. If the leader does not think they have the capacity at the school to improve, what are the chances the school will improve? The second is the competency of identity and relationships. In a multicultural society, this is particularly essential. In the Bay Area, we have students attending our public schools who speak between 80 and 100 different home languages. So the issues of cultural competency and understanding yourself, the power you have, who you are, issues of gender, race, religion, class are extremely important if you want to improve schooling for vulnerable populations. The third competency is equity and advocacy. In this, we describe a leader's ability to analyze the equity issues, as I just previously mentioned, and to compose solutions that can effectively address the issues they identify. And so these 3 competencies, the inward-facing ones, are the foundation of the work. Then they use those to externalize their values and beliefs, first through curriculum and instruction, of course. We must know something about effective instruction, especially for vulnerable populations. The leader must know something about organizations and systems, being able to analyze and create those systems. The leader must know something about change and coherence, not just change, because good change is coherent, so both. And finally, something about assessment and accountability. Now here we are not talking about external accountability. Instead, we are talking about positive internal accountability within a school that most good teachers already have established, for instance, expectations. So the rest of today's talk will focus on the 7th competency, assessment and accountability. And I will give you some specific examples of ways that our graduates have implemented some new strategies in this area in the field. This is probably a review for many of you, but we have to start with the classroom assessment continuum. For any teacher or child, they experience different levels of assessment, starting with the most formative, which is the closest to instruction. In real time, the feedback we give, the immediacy of the small adjustments we make. And then, of course, students are evaluated perhaps once a week or once every few days, and they still have a fairly quick feedback cycle in those cases. But then many teachers have larger, longer cycles of assessment, especially over multiple teaching instances, for instance, unit tests, or perhaps in high schools, a semester exam at the midpoint of the year, etc. And then those have usually cover more content and occur over a much longer instructional period. And then finally, we have these summative tests that I've been describing that are mostly very long in length, maybe 1 year of instruction, or in some cases 2 years of instruction in the United States. And they're usually not very useful to the student. They are more used to evaluate the school or the teachers, etc. So the issue for us is, in the US, is that this assessment continuum, which I've drawn as horizontal, is not currently horizontal in our schools. It is out of balance. That we have overemphasized the most summative tests, the ones that are the least useful for improving instruction and learning, and that help students improve, and we have diminished what is most effective. So our current challenge under the new law is to rebalance our strategy, which means that our leaders must be able to create environments to support more of the formative assessment strategies in schools. The new law signed by President Obama in 2015 will still require testing. However, the testing will be different. It will require multiple assessments and a different type of assessment, which I will describe in a little bit. And it increases the standards to what we call college and career readiness. The idea that every child should be able to choose if he or she wants to go to college. And has some changing of the accountability requirements, which are still in the process of being determined because the law was just signed a few months ago. Here is a quote from President Obama about the intent, and you will see more of an equity definition in this law that he expresses in his quote. So under the new law, there will be primarily only 2 assessments used in the entire country. This is very new for us. We're used to having autonomy around testing, and for the first time, we will have large groups of states taking the same test. But these tests are very different. They are going to be on the computer adaptive. And they will have 4 types of questions instead of 1 type of question. They will also be used for formative assessment, not just summative assessment, because they can be taken in parts. The first type of question will be the same, which is multiple choice, basically from before, where the students choose an answer. However, the second type is called non-traditional response, and these are questions that are aided by a computer and could not be done on a pencil paper test or multiple choice format. I'll give you an example later. And then there is constructed response, which means the student is expected to respond in an open format. An example might be a writing exercise where they're asked to write a few paragraphs. They will type them on the computer. And then finally, performance tasks. Now, performance tasks are similar to what Judith described from the math department at the high school, where they're multi-step, they require critical thinking, and they are absolutely the most complex type of assessment. And what we know is that assessment drives teaching, and so this assessment affords us opportunities to increase the rigor of our instruction and also to have more formative assessment. So I'm going to give you an example now of one of the performance tasks. These are free and available for the public because they want to help teachers understand the new expectation. The prompt is in English, so I'm going to read it in order for the translator to read it to you. The performance assessment starts with a prompt which sets the context for the entire task. This one is about cereal boxes, Fruit Loops, Corn Flakes, you know, whatever kind of cereal the kids like to eat. And the context reads, a cereal company uses cereal boxes that are rectangular prisms. The boxes have the dimensions shown: 12 inches high, 8 inches wide, 2 inches deep. The managers of the company want a new size for their cereal boxes. The new boxes have to be rectangular prisms. You will evaluate one box design the company proposed. Then you will create and propose your own design for the company. The requirements for the new boxes have to use less cardboard than the original boxes. I guess they want to save on materials. And the new boxes have to hold the same or greater volume of cereal as the original boxes. So this is the context. And then the first part of the problem. And this problem is a non-traditional problem, as previously mentioned. It says here in the directions, label the dimensions of the net for the current cereal box with dimensions 12 inches high, 8 inches wide, and 2 inches deep. So the students will put numbers in the appropriate corresponding places. And then there are several other steps to this problem, but for the sake of time, I'm moving to the last part, where the students are asked to design a new cereal box for the company. All cereal boxes are rectangular prisms. Then explain why your design is better for the company based on the requirements. In your response, give the dimensions of your box and explain how your box meets each of the requirements for new boxes. So I don't know about you, but I don't want to answer this problem. This is very hard, in my opinion. The way I learned math was calculations, memorization. I was never asked to do something like this. And so I want to give you a moment now to turn to a neighbor to identify how a teacher would have to teach differently in order to prepare their students for this type of assessment. And then I will describe how our teachers are changing their practices, okay? I don't have a lot of time, but maybe 1 minute or 1.5 minutes. Go ahead. Okay, I'm sorry to have such a short discussion. I failed to mention in advance of presenting the problem that this is expected to be done by an 11-year-old in the 6th grade. So the teachers in the United States are thinking a lot about how we integrate technology into our curriculum, because the students have to be able to type, to move the mouse, they have to understand how to navigate the assessment. We're also talking a lot about how we justify thinking, how the students are asked to explain their answer and justify their argument. And then, of course, we are asking them to apply the basic skills of mathematics to a context, and they have to make judgment calls about how to do that. So they need lots of opportunities and practice, and so do the teachers, because this is a new expectation. So how do teachers do this in the change? Well, I'm going to give you one example. So I know a teacher. She teaches algebra to 8th graders and 9th graders, which is 13-year-olds and 14-year-old students. And she was filmed by a company called the Teaching Channel, which is a British company that video records exemplary techniques from teachers. And she was recorded for a technique called My Favorite No, learning from mistakes. Now, I'll go back to my own mathematics education. I really hoped my teacher would not say no. I wanted her to say correct, yes. And so this title alone intrigues me to think about this teacher's strategy. In the strategy, she passes out little small pieces of paper. She puts a problem on the board, like this one in the video. The video describes all of this, but I don't have time to show it to you, so I'm just going to describe. Sorry, but there is a website and it's free. You can look yourself. And basically, she takes this paper and she gives one to each student with a problem that they solve. Maybe it takes 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Then she collects all of the papers. And she finds the incorrect papers. She looks for the papers with mistakes. And then she chooses 2 or 3 of them, mistakes, to share with the class. And she then asks the students to help this other student, who nobody knows who it is, how to correct the mistakes. And she does this she picks the most common errors, which in algebra is usually related to procedural issues. And so through this reinforcement, she's able to create a sense of community in her class where the students teach each other and where they're reminded of common problems. And she tests this notion on the summative assessments. She checks to see which students are still making these procedural errors with longer assessments. Now, what would it take for a teacher to implement such a strategy in their classroom? It requires a sense and an expectation that a mistake is an opportunity to learn. This is a big change because in my math experience, a mistake was an opportunity to be ashamed and embarrassed. That's very different. And that students can help other students learn. That's a second expectation this teacher had. And the third expectation is that a fast feedback cycle, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, can correct these types of problems. There's no need to do 100 problems or 50 problems, making the same mistake over and over again, but instead correcting in real time. So these types of cultural changes, the good part is they're free. You don't have to pay to buy a computer, curriculum, or anything like that, but they are issues of culture in classrooms and how teachers change those cultures. But that's part of the process for teaching to these new standards, is how we change the way we teach and how we explain to students that the answer, getting the right answer, is only part of the learning process. The justification and the explanation for their choices is just as important. Other examples which I will are related to what Judith presented in her earlier session are related to other ways leaders can support this type of work. So if you're a leader in the room and you've been listening to my presentation, you may be thinking, I'm not teaching the students, I'm not the one who's setting this culture. But leaders can encourage teachers to use these types of strategies. And another strategy that is widely used is a notion called common assessment. Now, common assessment is when teachers, through collegiality, as Judith described, will design an assessment task, often a complicated one, like the one in the test. And then after designing the assessment, they will use it in their own classrooms separately, bring the results together to grade those assessments, and compare and reflect on what they learn from the assessment results. Similar to what we're asking the students to do, a teacher who has very few students who successfully complete one part of the assessment has an opportunity then to ask a teacher whose students had a high success in completing that same part of the assessment can learn from each other, learn how they taught this part of the lesson, and how they can incorporate and improve their practice. This requires what Judith described as the structures, the time, the facilitation, and then the support and expectation for completing the entire cycle. The cycle completion is especially important because simply giving the test without discussing the results will not lead to improved instruction. It's more of an act of compliance. And so the power of improving the instruction comes in the analysis of the scores and the redesign of the assessment. Another example is related to how we report progress to students and their parents. In many elementary schools across California now, we have moved away from A, B, C, D, F to competency-based reporting. An example from kinder, because it's the most simplistic, would be, can they count to 50 orally? Yes or no? Can they write their name? You know, et cetera, et cetera. If we report information to parents in this way, they can then work with their child on the areas where they have not improved. If we give them a C or an F, the parent does not know why, and they cannot help in the process. Now, at the high school level, we have had trouble moving to competency-based grading overall because of the university system, which requires, for their entrance, the use of something like an A, B, C, D, F scale. However, instead, we have developed and implemented some web-based tools to allow teachers to use grade books on an online format where students and their parents can have access, immediate access and view to the teacher's scoring in real time, instead of at the end of the quarter or the end of the semester when it's too late to do anything. So again, ways to improve immediate feedback, and I'm sure this is true in Chile as it's true in the United States. High school students and their parents don't always communicate very well with each other, and so the grade book becomes an important point of reference in those relationships. I also want to give an example of larger school-wide systems that involve the use of assessment that must be coordinated and led by the leadership. Specifically in the United States in 2004, there was a revision of the law that provides guidance on the education of children with disabilities. This could be severe disabilities such as not speaking or not walking, all the way to minor or mild disabilities such as a hearing impairment or maybe dyslexia or something like that. And so the law, for many years before this revision, the law said that students could not be identified as disabled, learning disabled, unless they were at least 2 years below grade level in their performance. So a sixth grader would have to be reading at least a fourth grade level or below in order to qualify to be labeled learning disabled and then receive extra assistance. Of course, some students who are reading 2 grade levels below grade level are not disabled. They might be immigrants and learning English or et cetera, but anyway, this is a minimum requirement. And basically this law was reactionary. We waited for children to fail at a certain level before we would give them help. This is a kind of not intuitive process. And so when the law was revised, it mandated that schools also had to have an intervention or a prevention of disability, that they had to provide faster support for students to lower the number of students that were qualifying as disabled, to prevent students from needing this diagnosis. This process has been largely implemented, the proactive part, under a title called Response to Intervention. And this diagram, which I will describe because it's in English, is an example of a system that a principal creates at a school to comply with the law and provide intervention in shorter time frames. We call it coordination of services. The idea is that a teacher will try to intervene in the classroom with children, but sometimes it's not enough. And that there are other people in the building, in the school, who are focused on supporting struggling students. Maybe a psychologist, or a reading teacher, or in the case of the United States, a special education teacher who is a teacher assigned to support students with disabilities. Together with the school leadership, they form something called the Coordination of Services Team, or COST. Teachers, after performing classroom interventions with no success, refer students to the COST committee. The committee reviews, through an extensive process, the assessment information, the history of the student, the progress they've had previously, and the prior interventions. So this system cannot exist without classroom assessment, because the team needs to know what has been done already and what have been the results. Then they have a meeting where they analyze the student's case. And then they work on an intervention plan, short-term intervention plan based on the needs of the student, which are implemented within 1 week of the plan creation. Then this COST team monitors the progress of the plan after only a short period of time, 8 weeks, 6 weeks, depending on the calendar and the activities of the school. If the student completes the intervention and is doing well, they are exited from the COST system and they no longer require further monitoring. However, if they did not successfully meet the standard, then the team goes back and revises the intervention plan again, and then again implements and monitors. So you can see from this diagram that there will be cycles of work, and that assessment would be needed in order to monitor, design, and implement such a plan at the school level. A few other examples that are not about instruction, because we have focused so far on improving instruction, but we know there are other issues that contribute to strong instruction. In California, under the new accountability, we will also look at student attendance. Improving rates of attendance, for example, decreasing absences. We will also analyze student discipline data. That is referrals to schools or suspensions or violent incidences, etc. In addition, they will require us to examine graduation rates, rates of school completion, and on-time promotion throughout the system. And finally, college readiness will be a new standard, meaning to ensure that students have the choice of attending college if they wish, which is part of the new policy. So these will be required, but there are also some other interesting examples of collecting data and evidence to inform leadership that are not required, but being used by many of our graduates in the Bay Area. Specifically, surveying teachers and staff about their opinions and their needs. Also soliciting student and parent input, as Judith described. That's an important part of success, especially in schools with high populations of vulnerable students. And some of the ways that they're doing that include forming advisory groups, also creating panels, using surveys, but also something called student shadowing, where leaders strategically choose a vulnerable student and follow them through their school day to see their complete experience of one day of school. That's very different than the compartmentalized way that we see students from class to class. And then finally, community input from churches or other local associations, the teachers union, and other groups to determine partnerships and other ways that the community and the school can work together to improve education for the children. So what I've described to you today are the best practices, the most promising practices that we have. However, I don't want you to think that every school in California does all of these things. No, I mean, that's our hope. We're still working towards that. And I described to my students that our journey to improvement will never be complete because there will always be something new that we need to learn or do better, and that the goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to be improving. And so with that sentiment, I leave you with a quote from our famous civil rights leader, Martin Luther King Jr., who says, "If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward." Sometimes we are able, through policies or leaders, to fly in areas. Sometimes we are just crawling. But the idea is that we are improving and that we have a vision for what we believe to be equitable schooling and learning. And so I hope by sharing some of the strategies that we use in the United States and in California, that we can help you to fly, not crawl, but to fly here in Chile. Thank you so much. It's been my honor to speak with you.
Bien, agradecemos también a Rebecca Chaung por su presentación y a continuación vamos a invitar a ambas, junto a don José Weinstein, a que tomen ubicación en esta testera, junto a Rebecca y a Judith, por favor, para comenzar con la ronda de preguntas. Comenzamos entonces con la ronda de preguntas.
Bueno, muy bien. Primero que nada, yo quiero agradecer de nuevo a las profesoras Judith Warren Little y Rebecca Cheung esta posibilidad de compartir con ellas esta mañana lo que nos han brindado de conocimientos. Hemos hecho un esfuerzo especial esta mañana en el seminario de entregarles unas carpetas muy completas, de tal manera que ustedes se puedan llevar a sus lugares de trabajo posteriormente, tanto las dos presentaciones de las profesoras de Berkeley, como también un artículo de la profesora Warren Little, que tradujimos del inglés de tal manera de poder también ampliar su conocimiento sobre lo que son las comunidades de aprendizaje. Tal como hemos pensado esta mañana, la última parte, estos últimos minutos, los vamos a aplicar para que ellas puedan reaccionar frente a algunas de las preguntas que ustedes les han hecho. Quiero también saludar a quienes no están en esta sala, no hubo posibilidad de que atendieran, que han estado en otras salas de la universidad, escuchando el streaming que hemos tenido y las imágenes. Dado que no fue posible que todos estuvieran en la sala, tenemos a gente que estuvo en otras salas en paralelo. Quiero darles a ellos también un saludo y agradecerles que hayan permanecido aquí y hayan tenido la comprensión y la flexibilidad para participar desde otra ubicación de este evento. Vamos a partir con una pregunta para la profesora Judith Warren Little. A la profesora Warren Little le preguntan, ¿de qué manera el distrito escolar, ¿no es cierto?, lo equivalente a nuestro municipio, apoya a los líderes escolares para fomentar comunidades de aprendizaje? Los sistemas de accountability, de rendición de cuenta que tienen los distritos escolares, ¿toman en cuenta este factor? ¿Cómo lo apoyan entonces los distritos a los directivos para generar comunidades de aprendizaje? Y si los sistemas de rendición de cuentas de alguna manera se hacen cargo de esta idea tan poderosa.
Okay, now it's on. And this is a question that I think Rebecca may also want to address. At the beginning of my talk, I said that it was unlikely that teachers would be successful in creating very vibrant, powerful learning environments for their own students, at least on a large scale, on a widespread scale, if their own workplace were not generative for them in the same way. Take that up one level for the world of the principal. So in districts, one of the questions you could ask is whether when principals come together, often districts have a monthly meeting of principals. Sometimes it's all principals, but more likely secondary principals together, primary together, or regions, geographic areas. When those principals come together, what happens with them? And we were talking about this actually earlier, that the way a district begins a school year sends an important signal. And often the district, when it brings principals together to begin the school year, sits them in a room and talks at them. And that's a very different signal from presenting, for example, an orienting statement about the state of the district and then engaging principals with each other in analyzing the situation, problem solving, setting goals together, finding ways to support each other. So the environment that principals themselves experience in the district is important. Policies are important, district policies, and there are trade-offs here. Districts are often in difficult circumstances in terms of resources. So one of the ways that the mathematics group was able to grow was that they were able, as a group, to attend networking events and conferences outside the school. That became problematic when the district established a policy that the school could only have so many substitute teachers on any one day. So the principal had to negotiate with the district in order to get enough substitute teachers for the mathematics group to go as a group to learn. So there's, a district would actually have to, first of all, conduct its interactions with principals in a way that support the principals' learning and help them think about how to support a culture in their school. But they also have to think about the ways that everything from budgeting requirements to curricular requirements to professional development, all the small, supposedly separate policy decisions either promote or hinder the principal in doing this kind of work.
Ahora le vamos a hacer una pregunta a la profesora. Le vamos a hacer una pregunta ahora a la profesora Rebecca Cheung sobre un tema que tiene que ver también con el liderazgo, es muy importante, que tiene que ver con qué hacen los líderes escolares respecto de las familias y los padres. Entonces lo que se hace en esta pregunta le dice, ¿cómo manejan en California los líderes escolares la carencia de apoyo de los padres hacia el aprendizaje de sus hijos, especialmente en los lugares, en las áreas más vulnerables? ¿Cuál es además la formación que yo agrego aquí de mi cosecha? ¿Cuál es la formación que hacen, ¿no es cierto?, en sus programas de liderazgo para qué pueden hacer los directivos escolares respecto de los temas de familia que son tan importantes acá en Chile?
Hello? This is a really important question that we take up in many parts of our preparation. Specifically, first is the need for our leaders to understand what it is like to be a parent in crisis. This perspective is very important because people in crisis do not typically end up being teachers. And so our own histories and childhoods are very, very different than the environments in which these families in crisis live. Second is around issues of flexibility. We encourage our leaders to, once they understand the context, to find the best way to communicate with parents. This could be an email, maybe, although more and more no in the United States. Some people are buying these group texting services and texting messages to families because they found that that's the most effective way to communicate. Or they have a phone call system where they can record a message and the machine will call and send the message. However we can communicate with them. And always assuming that they are doing their best in the circumstances in which they live is very important, because some of the parents in communities that are vulnerable and in crisis have had negative histories and relationships with schools. They do not think of schools as places to go for help. They think of schools as places of judgment, negative impact, and places that push them away. So the stance that we take in the way that we approach this work is very important. What I found in the school where I was principal, and about 85% of the students met the poverty criteria, is that parents, just like any parent, even a parent in crisis, will try their best to come to the school when the child is being celebrated. And so, for instance, when we have student performances, the school is full. And then I use that opportunity to also talk about a few other things. And also when the children are being given awards or they're being recognized, the parents will try their best to find a way to come. When you want to set up a meeting to talk about something bad, who wants to go to that meeting? And when you have already in crisis, it's easier to deprioritize that because you have many negative meetings. So in short, I would say this is related to our approach. There's no solution to this problem except the way we approach the problem may help us come up with better solutions.
Rebecca, asset mapping?
And so Judith wants me to add that we also teach our students about asset mapping, which is the way they can identify strengths in children, in communities, in families, in neighborhoods, as a place to start.
Gracias, Rebeca. Vamos a hacer una pregunta ahora a la profesora Warren Little. Esta pregunta tiene que ver con... Estoy juntando dos preguntas en realidad que vinieron, que tienen que ver con cuáles son las condiciones para que las comunidades de aprendizaje que ella describió dejen de ser una excepción y pasen a ser algo más masivo. Es decir, cuáles podrían ser las políticas que podrían orientar que efectivamente tengamos muchas comunidades de aprendizaje y no solo algunas excepcionales comunidades de aprendizaje. Y dentro de eso, un punto específico tiene que ver con el tiempo. Se pregunta aquí cuál sería el tiempo ideal para gestionar comunidades de aprendizaje. Esta pregunta también es muy pertinente para nosotros. Ustedes saben que la nueva carrera docente, ¿no es cierto?, aumenta de 25 a 35%, el tiempo llamado no lectivo, ya en los lugares más vulnerables incluso al 40%. Por lo tanto, la pregunta es muy pertinente, creo yo, para lo que tiene que ver con nuestra realidad de discusión de políticas hoy día, esta idea de cuáles serían las políticas para impulsar que las comunidades de aprendizaje sean no una excepción y cuál sería el tiempo que debiese destinársele a esto. Judith.
Thank you. Well, this has been the big challenge, of course. They continue to be the exception. And I think what we're seeing in this effort to this professional learning community and movement is to support districts, both the system and individual schools, in finding ways to make collaborative work just a more expected part of the school day. So where I've seen it at the school level, it's been a matter of, in part, the organization of time. So one example in a middle school was a school that under the union contract, and that's always a constraint, so you think about how contracts could be constructed to support this, but under the contract, the teacher day was of this length, and this school arranged for about a 40-minute period at the beginning of the duty day. Principal established the expectation that teachers would arrive at that time, even though the students didn't come for another 40 minutes. So the expectation was, you come then, you don't wait till later just because the students aren't coming. And they were organized in teams, and some teams were more effective than others, but the routine became, and food always helps. So at the beginning of the school year, the principal made sure that there was coffee, and when they first started out, coffee, and the team leaders took to bringing small amounts of food that would be there early in the morning, and the team leaders, the principal worked with team leaders, teachers who were team leaders, to help think about an agenda for work that could be accomplished in a 40-minute period, something that they had in common that could be accomplished. And so the expectation became team meetings were the way you started the day, not the way you ended the day when you were tired, but the way you started when you're fresh and before you meet the students. And the principal walked from these teams met in teachers' classrooms. So the principal would just walk around, and I was there as a researcher, and so I would be taking notes, and I would notice the principal just leaning in the doorway and just listening for a few minutes and then moving on. And that gave the principal a way to know what was being talked about in the different teams, and if there were concerns being raised, the principal could then help the team leaders to work on it. Or if there were new ideas being generated, it meant that the principal could say, I heard you talking about this, how can I support it? So there was, it takes the cultural work. It takes the structure of time and the cultural work. So districts can do this in part by trying to negotiate agreements around the teacher workday that have structured moments of time that are for the whole school and not just individual preparation time. The more individual it is, here's my preparation time, the harder it is to bring people together. And the more you've got structures of time and expectation that are common, say at a grade level or for a school, maybe the more it can become the norm that this is how we use that time. But I think it's a real challenge. There are challenges in each of those areas, structural, technical, and cultural. But even for principals to come together and analyze what are the most important of those challenges for their school and to start a plan to work on those would be a starting place. The group that's been most prominent in the United States to try and bring this to scale has in particular worked with districts around tools to help people analyze, as Rebecca said, various forms of data, not just standardized test data, but formative assessment data, and making that learning from student experience kind of the heart of what these teacher communities do.
Una pregunta ahora para la profesora Cheung. Tiene que ver con un tema que acá en Chile hemos hecho muy poco, el tema de la evaluación de los directivos escolares. Nosotros en Chile tenemos evaluación de docentes, sin embargo no tenemos evaluación de directores. Entonces la pregunta que se le hace es, ¿qué experiencia usted podría señalar desde el punto de vista de evaluación de directores de escuela?
This is an interesting question. I'm sorry to tell you that California and the United States has also not done a fantastic job in this area. However, we have some examples that may be useful to you. The first is the use of validated evaluations. In particular, there have been two developed by universities, one by Vanderbilt in Tennessee, and a second by the University of Wisconsin-Madison, that try to incorporate what we call a 360 evaluation of a principal. The challenge with principal evaluation is that it is done in so many contexts, with so many people. In your office, maybe with one or two people. In the cafeteria with 500 people or 1,000 people. With your faculty, with your parents. And so the first one, the VALED, which is the assessment in Vanderbilt, is now being used by many states to assess principals. And it is a 360 survey tool, meaning they survey different components of the school community, teachers, students, parents, and supervisors about the behaviors of the leader, and they triangulate this feedback. The other assessment is called the Comprehensive Assessment for Leadership for Learning, CALL, and it has a very different premise. The premise is that instructional leadership is most important, and secondly, that instructional leadership is done by a team. So it also uses survey to survey staff primarily and some students, but it is not, it's an assessment of the instructional leadership of the entire team of the school. It's not directed at the principal specifically. Two very different tools. The rest of, those are the only two tools that I know of that have been completely tested and validated in the States. And most principals in the United States are evaluated based on a set of standards. We do have leadership standards at the national level and the state level for the work of the leader. And so local supervisors of principals will simply be required to make reports about their progress or their accomplishments related to those local standards.
Could I add, so Rebecca, could I ask you to comment on two other things? One is, what are the arrangements from your experience in districts for principals to get evaluated by and get feedback from their supervisors, assistant superintendents and so forth? And what have you seen that would, in that respect, replace what for a long time I think was the informal way of evaluating principals, which was by the number of parent complaints?
Well, you say former, but I think that still happens sometimes, the parent complaint part at least. But I'll just add that what is now expected of principal supervisors is that they must actually visit the principal at their schools more than one time to visit the classroom and understand the challenges of that leader's working context. That can take many forms. We have some protocols for that work, but that is the expectation. And that the supervisor supports the principals in developing improvement plans and efforts. That the principal receives some support, not just have a lot of tennis balls being thrown at you, but maybe there's two people with rackets hitting the balls back, or three in some cases, or on certain topics.
Vamos entonces vamos a hacerles las últimas dos preguntas, una a Judith, la siguiente a Rebeca, y como para finalizar nuestra actividad. La última pregunta para Judith tiene que ver con el tema de la formación docente, la formación inicial docente. Entonces la pregunta que se hace es ¿cómo se forma en las facultades de educación a un profesor para que participe en las comunidades de aprendizaje docente? ¿Cómo no se lo forma solo para el asignaturismo? Se usa esa palabra aquí en la pregunta, digamos. ¿Cómo se logra, ¿no es cierto?, generar estas capacidades para que efectivamente aprenda a trabajar en grupo, colectivamente, y asuma la tarea docente como una tarea colectiva y no individual?
Thank you. So in a way, our programs are maybe not the best example to use because they're very small. And they're postgraduate programs. So for us, one of the main resources that we have in teacher formation, in preparing teachers who are accustomed to working together, is that we have small cohorts. They enter the program together, they take all of their work together, they do some planning together. So we benefit from being very small. But if I look at some examples, the University of Michigan, for example, that has very large, both undergraduate and graduate teacher education programs. I think they provide us some good examples. Also the University of Washington. So what they do is also organize teachers in teams and in groups to work together and study together. They plan lessons together. They rehearse those lessons at the university first as a group with the teacher educator. Then they go to schools not as individual student teachers to an individual teacher's classroom, but they go as a group. they watch each other teach, they come back and they debrief or they analyze what happened together. They help each other out with areas where they're having problems. So they are prepared in ways that both build their individual skills, but also just make it a taken for granted part of their world that they are working with other teachers. So the more of those kind of collective learning, and when they plan together, they have to work through differences in viewpoint about what they should do. So having to negotiate and navigate places where there may be conflict and differences of viewpoint is something they get experience with even in their teacher education program. So there are some good examples. I think that the best examples that I would want to point you to are in programs that are fairly large, because there the challenge is bigger. And programs that have successfully created collaborative opportunities are the ones that might be the best resource.
Muchas gracias, profesora Warren-Little. Ahora voy a preguntar a la profesora Cheung respecto de un tema emergente, que es el tema del coaching y todo lo que tiene que ver con la mentoría de directores. Entonces la pregunta es, ¿qué puede esperar un director o una directora de un mentor o de una mentora? ¿Qué tipo de herramientas puede entregarle? ¿Por qué sería esto importante?
As I mentioned in my presentation, we provide individual coaching for early career leaders for 2 years. For us, the job of the coach is to help build the capacity and the competencies of the new leaders to do their work. The goal is not to tell the new leaders what to do. So our focus then becomes on each individual's needs and creating a confidential and supportive working relationship that allows the new leader to be honest about their learning needs and progress in these competencies. So that's what our students expect from the process. And their relationships with their coaches often last much longer than the two years that they spend together formally. Many of the coaches still visit their students later, and their students reach out to them when they're in times of need. It's a reciprocal relationship of learning.
Bien, muchas gracias. Antes de cerrar, quiero solamente decirles dos cosas. La primera es que ustedes han ingresado a un listado. Nosotros tenemos un mail actualmente, entonces les vamos a estar enviando información de este centro. Les vamos a estar enviando los boletines, les vamos a estar enviando información múltiple, les vamos a informar también de los seminarios que vienen. El próximo año un nuevo seminario internacional, pero en agosto y en noviembre 2 seminarios nacionales. Así que pierdan cuidado, que no se van a librar tan fácil de nosotros, sino que los tendremos informados lo más posible respecto a estas actividades. Y lo segundo es que quiero decirles que para que fuera posible toda esta actividad hubo el trabajo muy sacrificado de mucha gente. Hubo un equipo en el CEDLE en que estuvo Francisca, Marcela, Daniela, Natalia, Lorena, Isabel, trabajando muy fuertemente y con mucho compromiso para que esto resultara impecable, no solo en Santiago, sino también en Temuco y en Talca. Quiero pedirles para todas ellas un gran aplauso.